Let me just get a snack first.
Snack? I brought a snack.
Oh, that's okay. I'm good.
Oh, no. I got this. Told you I brought a snack.
There's a better way to eat pickles on the go. Sucker Punch, the snack with a snap.
When you look at the number of participants who had a shot at this, who wanted to be one of 12 of 60-something thousand, I mean, that's impressive in and of itself. What a diverse group of drivers, what a diverse group of participants. Just really cool. They should all be very, very proud.
Players around 4 platforms. I mean, I'm lucky to be here.
We about to change the game. We out here taking names. Let our voices rise. Let them reach the skies. We about to change the game. We out here taking names. Let our voices rise. Let them reach the skies. Hickory, dog, giving them Mr. Determined. Right in the storm and focus on rainbow connections like Kermit. The water on my shoulders, it was a burden. Now I don't notice it, everything turning. Everything shifting, doing it different. I'm floating, I'm drifting. Shout out the slums, round the world we uplifted. Doing it big. We about to change the game. We out here taking names. Let our voices rise. Let them reach the skies. We about to change the game. We out here.
Every one of them deserves to be there, celebrating the fact that they were here and a part of this very first ever Prodigy Week for Racing Prodigy, and what a 3 days it was.
And here we go, they're going to spray it, and let's see if they've learned how to spray the champagne. We're just 36 days away from making our way to the Atlanta Motorsports Park for Prodigy Week Part 2. And today, live from the virtual WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, 3 more drivers will punch their tickets to Atlanta. Welcome to the postseason finals of the Prodigy Racing League Mazda Spec MX-5 Cup Golden Ticket Series on iRacing, powered by SuckerPunch. Delighted you can join us. Arjuna Kankipati joined once again by Joey Tebben as we get ready to go. And Joey, on Easter, we ended off our Race Room Golden Ticket Series in the MX-5 Cup machine, and now we get ready to go in the Spec MX-5 Cup. It's been intriguing over the last 7 weeks seeing drivers compete in an official iRacing series, but now 3 races, effectively 4, left to determine 3 Prodigy passes here today.
We continue our love of the Mazda Miata in all of its flavors, but it is the slightest change. It's a switch from Race Room to iRacing, slightly different engines, slightly different laws of physics you're dealing with, and of course, slightly different cars, and a pretty similar track to where we've been going for the past couple of weeks. We've been very focused on the tightness and the twistiness and places where it's somewhat difficult to pass. What better place to go into your backyard, Arjuna? We're at Laguna Seca. We're at Laguna Seca, where passing always comes at a premium. You got to be aggressive here.
This track has been repaved in the recent past. However, it is still a technical challenge, and I was actually there when I went to Laguna Seca for the first time, it was to witness Spec MX5 Cup racing. So this today actually holds a bit of a special place in my heart. I was there watching a teammate, this eat-a-real journey. It's all too real. And let's dive into the action at hand. Let's talk about the format, because I mentioned iRacing official series, and that was something new after the build-up into Prodigy Week Part 1. For Season 1 Part 2, we've moved over to series. Stage 1 was all about building the drivers to get to here. We've taken the top 48. We're going to snake them out into 2 races, and we'll have 30 minutes to determine a Prodigy Pass winner. After that, you, the fans, you get involved. 2 of the drivers in each of our group final races will be eligible to step up to an LCF, and our judges pick 2 very experienced Mazda racers as well. We'll bring 2 more drivers from each group to the party. 8 drivers in total, 2 races, an inverted second race grid, points totals, what matters to build our Prodigy Pass. I love, Joey, that we have this new format.
You know I love an LCQ, Arjuna. I like the safety net. I like the fact that the fans get to get involved. I like the fact that the judges get to get involved. It's almost a little bit like the Prodigy Search Selection Committee in sort of a mini fashion, picking some drivers who maybe had some bad luck, maybe had a hard fight in their final and came up just short. I think that last chance final might be the most hotly contested race of the night. And who doesn't love a little funky points format where we get to do some live points calculations? That'll be fun too.
And of course, don't forget 3 more to be selected by the Prodigy Search Selection Committee, and that's all building this very coming week on the Racing Prodigy YouTube channel. So if you're not already joining us there, do make sure you are subscribed for what is to come. Drivers are about to get thrown on forward into a qualifying session that is going to be very important. With only 1 Prodigy Pass on the line, being at the front from the very start going to take on increased importance. But all of our partners that make us get here, that are supporting us on our journey with this eat-a-real pipeline, let's take the time to thank them before we dive into the on-track action. All natural pickle juice shooters for clean hydration, pickle chip pouches perfect for those long sim racing sessions or days at the track, and the Jared Pickles with knockout flavor, the true champ of Tron. It's now available in the US. Mazda Motorsports has partnered with Racing Prodigy to continue its mission of supporting race car drivers, enriching lives and developing the next prodigies. Mazda is supporting participants by providing $2,500 in coaching vouchers for the Racing Prodigy Coaching Marketplace. Toyo Tires is a global brand recognized for its innovation in engineering and design, quality, performance, and excellent service. In the US, its products have been embraced by racers, enthusiasts, and everyday drivers since 1966. Aztec Wheelbases with their revolutionary quick-release system allows you to easily switch wheels with just a click. SimLab P1X Pro Sim Racing cockpits with unparalleled rigidity, functionality, and design are your perfect sim racing base. And last but not least, Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers. Advanced Sim Racing is the fastest growing North American sim racing chassis manufacturer and equipment retailer. It's always great as well that not only do they support us in giving out prizes to our participants along the way, helping them to build their virtual rigs, but we also have some very snazzy liveries that we'll be able to take a look at. And there are the drivers working around this WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca as Joey, they get ready to be dumped into the qualifying session.
You know I love a snazzy livery. You've got the green to the SuckerPunch. You've got the gunmetal gray. You've got the bright blue. You got everything out here. But these are the last couple of laps. Get yourself in the rhythm. Laguna Seca is a track that very much rewards rhythm, especially turn 6 there coming up the hill. You've got to be so committed. And if you're off by even an inch, you clip that curb on the inside. You send yourself off into the gravel or the desiccated dirt on the outside, you're going to be in big trouble. The corkscrew, what corner requires more commitment than that? Just throwing yourself down a mountain, and then 2 more high-speed corners to the end of the race. Qualifying is going to be short. You're going to need to be at 100% speed very, very early, minimal mistakes, so use every second of practice you can get right now.
I'm just going to say, by the way, the corkscrew's great and all, but it's not even the scariest corner at this track. That is the one that we're taking a look at right now. Not the one that's in shot, the one that we're winding our way up to. As you rise to the top of the hill, it's that flat left-hand kink where you're trying to carry as much momentum as possible. There's this awful sausage curb on the inside that you're always trying to avoid hitting as well, but sometimes that's a bit of a task of vain. Drivers have been deposited on over into that qualifying session. And one thing that, Joey, I think you might be a little bit disappointed with is usually we'd have 2 semi-finals and then take the top 12 from each, build them into the final, and use our Prodigy Zipper to build our starting grid. No Prodigy Zipper here today. You missed the last time we got to use it on our last round at Race Room.
Boo hiss. Although, in a way, there's a little bit of zippering because we had the top 48 registered for this event, and we split them into 2 semifinals via the Prodigy Zipper, so I'm still satisfied. If it was a week without any zipper whatsoever, I'd be done. I'd be quitting and retiring, but I'm still happy. I'm still here.
I'm glad that we at least get to keep you in the booth for a little bit longer. Let's take a look as drivers get ready for this qualifying session. Well, at some of the drivers. Now, we've got 2 groups, remember, so not everybody that you're looking at is guaranteed to be out there and trying to qualify right now, but there will be some that are out there on their warm-up laps, just building up the speeding, getting ready to go. Ultimately, I think, I'm making a bit of a bold call here, Joey, if you don't qualify inside of the top 10, you've got no chance in just a 30-minute race.
That is absolutely the case. I mean, if there's total drama on lap 1, like we see sometimes at Laguna Seca, maybe a driver from outside of the top 10 can make something happen, but that's going to be exceptionally difficult to do. All of these guys are focused, though. One driver's so focused he isn't even in his chair. We'll see him in semifinal number 2, but those were some very, very focused faces, and it's going to be very, very high pressure here in this qualifying session. There's so much time to be gained with commitment at Laguna Seca. You've got to be in the zone on lap 1, or else you're out of luck. You might be starting outside of the top 10.
Yeah, and of course, in the real world, they do rely on Toyo tires in the Mazda Spec MX-5 real world racing series, and delighted to be able to say that we will be using Toyo tires on our BMWs for the autocross, whatever we called it, segment, the skid pan, that's the correct terminology, for it on day 1. So come May the 13th, Toyo tires will be thrown onto the BMW. That will also run for autocross. So there's 2 different things that they'll get to be used for. Decided to have Toyo tires on board moving forward to Prodigy Week Part 2. 36 days away. Qualifying, like we mentioned, going to be all about getting the most of the track by yourself. However, you only get 2 attempts at qualifying, and so I think there's some pressure in some ways, Joey, to make sure you don't invalidate your lap times, especially knowing how much of the track they want to try and use.
And that is easy to do. You just saw the number 17, Louis Bilecki, getting very, very far out into the dirt. I think he was still within track limits. I think
Chevrolet Silverado Cup, something
like that.
The wild oval day that we had, of course, he was part of that. Garrett Lowe ending up along with Dominic Lukomsky winning the Prodigy Passes from our only left turning tournament so far. And of course, we've already had plenty of Prodigy Pass winners: Michael Romanidis, Nikodem Wisniewski, Kamil Pawlowski, Leandro Werler. Those are the 4 from Race Room. Jai Fletcher along with Craig Tough Monkey Laws, the 2 so far from Street Kart Racing. Remember, you can download an app on your iOS device and you could potentially be at Prodigy Week. First lap times coming in, Bilecki relatively quick. Interesting to see that Thomas Petitjean from RHG Esports 1 second off, but even Brandon Hawking finding himself 7/10 off the pace of the 17.
Yeah, you had some of those iRacing veterans, even Rope Akusti Korkipa, which I think is an anagram of your name, Arjuna, trying to get some speed in there, down at the bottom of the screen. And you mentioned Michael Romanidis. I feel kind of empty. I don't know what to do. I think this is the first time we've ever actually had one of these Prodigy Racing League events without Michael Romanidis in the field. I feel like a part of my heart is gone.
Yeah, but ultimately he's deserved that opportunity. It's going to be great to see the Coanda Esports driver finally out in one of those Radical SR1s at the Atlanta Motorsports Park. He might even get the chance to meet up with his Coanda Esports teammate Zach Campbell. Now, Camden Hibbett's one of a couple of real-world racers in this series. He actually competes in the Spec MX-5, and you'll see plenty of liveries. We have some sponsored cars, some representing the real Spec MX-5 liveries. Camden Hibbett racing in his Spec MX-5 machine, and great to be able to carry that forward. Still waiting, though, to really see anyone get close to the time up front. I mean, Matt Booser's now within 6/10. Thomas Petitjean on his 2nd time gets a little bit closer, as does Brandon Hawkin, but still no one close to challenging for pole.
No, there's definitely still time to be gained out here. There's still time out on the track, but you're going to have to get very, 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 very much in terms of improvement to get up to Louis Bilecki there in the 138.6s. Here comes Austin Farr across the line. He's got a lot of time to make up. 1 second off right now. Is he going to jump up into the top 6 just like Korkipa did? Looks like not quite, but top 10, top half of the field for Austin Farr so far.
Blaze Andrich up to 7th, so great to see improvements, but now we're very much on to the 2nd and final lap times for the drivers. Let's ride with Booser down through the corkscrew. It's such a big elevation drop, but it's then about how you roll this momentum in towards this long left-hander. Take a look at the driver who now represents Kevin Harvick Industries. He's quite excited about that new affiliation, one of those new teams in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. Down onto the brakes, you can hear him down through the gears as well, trying to just keep the revs up to really take the power, but that didn't necessarily seem like it was the best run to the line. 39.246 to beat, and he'll find himself, well, almost a 1.3 second deficit. And while there are some drivers that get closer and closer, Ruben Chacha up to second and only 83 thousandths off, that time still stands at the very top.
Yeah, but suddenly it's not as comfortable of a position as it once was. If you qualify 3/10 over the entirety of the field, you can take a little bit of a rest. As long as you survive turn one, you're probably going to be okay. But with Ruben Chacha getting within 1/10 of a second, suddenly Luis is going to be sweating that little bit more.
So 3 minutes left. There's only two drivers who I think still will throw times down. Savio Panicho, one of those drivers that we did see on the race room tournaments. See the microphone in front as well. Helps him to be able to communicate maybe with a spotter potentially that will help some of these drivers, I'm sure, navigate their way through some of this chaos and madness that we'll see in the opening couple of laps. To the line and bouncing off the limiter there as he adjusts something on his steering wheel. Finds himself with a 1/10 of a second improvement, but with 23 times onto the board, he's 22nd of them. And he's got some work to do from the very back. But that is effectively qualifying done and dusted. And Joey, we've got some close margins in the mid-pack and then two drivers at the front starting to break away.
And that's good news for the rest of the field, actually. The fact that those two drivers up front were breaking away together. If Bilecki and Chacha are fighting with themselves, that means that maybe some of those slower drivers, Brandon Hawken, Tommy Petitjean, Roberto Prieto, they can keep themselves in that pack, they can keep themselves in the train, and they can make this more of a two-car battle.
We've got two of these 30-minute races coming up as well, so that's going to be quite interesting to see how they all navigate their way through what lies ahead, because some of those drivers from the from the second final rather, will have the opportunity to be sitting on the sidelines to watch and see and maybe learn a little bit. However, there's the counterpoint to that where maybe all they're really doing, Joey, is getting even more laps behind the wheel.
I mean, that's very, very important. In a track like this, where it is sometimes single groove, it's very difficult to run side by side in places. You do need every lap you can get every inch of the track in your brain book, and try and figure that out. Especially through the corkscrew, high commitment, turn 6. Just get every possible entry, every possible angle in your head, and that's going to make you that much more prepared and that much more ready for whatever lap 1 at Laguna Seca is going to throw at you and whatever this 30-minute race is going to throw at you.
Remember that Prodigy Week is not just a test of the driver's racing ability at the end of the day. They're going to be tested physically, mentally, all before they get into the BMWs for some autocross, for some skid pan wheeling, and then karting to close out day number 1, at least based on the schedule that we had, of course, in Prodigy Week Part 1. I did see Gustavo Ariel jumping into the Racing Prodigy YouTube chat. He rounded off his Porsche Esports Super Cup season yesterday, and I'm sure he'll be watching on to see. Of course, the goal, the journey that we're all on here at Racing Prodigy is in the aims of a Prodigy draft to all build to real contracts, professional racing contracts for our Prodigy Week participants in the real hopeful Prodigy Racing League. Well, that is going to be qualifying then that officially will come to a close. Drivers will get the final opportunities to set themselves for the task at hand. We'll grab a look at your starting grid for the first of two 30-minute races with two Prodigy passes on the line. It is going to be Louis Bilecki, the German, that will lead us to the green. He'll have Ruben Chacha alongside, and loving these liveries, making it nice and easy to pick them apart. The Canadian Brandon Hawken going to be alongside Thomas Petitjean, with Roberto Prieto and Rupa Kurpika rounding out your front three starting rows. 7th will run the way of Rowan Gill, another one of our Spec MX-5 racers in the real world. Blaze Andrich and then Matt Busa and Jeffrey Lund make up the rest of your top 10. Austin Farr, Camden Hibbett, 11th and 12th positions. 13th going the way of Tobias Kruken. Sam Smith, the Australian, rolls alongside. Cam Martineau and then Ewan Baker, 15th and 16th, with Nicholas Rice-Puto, Luca Anic, and then behind them, Angelo Michel and Luzino Gonzaga to round out your top 20. Henrique Patinari, and then Savio Panicia, Matthew Fluck. Round out the 23 drivers to get ready to do battle. And do remember, if you're watching, you're cheering on for your respective driver. Well, stick around, even if they have some issues, because while one Prodigy Pass will be won, Joey, there are 2 more spots in the LCFs up for grabs through the fan vote.
Indeed, even if you're starting in 23rd like Matthew, you could still be plucked from this final, taken into the LCF, and given one more opportunity to get that Prodigy Pass and get sent to Prodigy Week. Everybody's still alive here. I honestly think that might increase the aggression a little bit. Everybody knows the fans are watching. They know the judges are watching. Everybody wants that chance to get plucked into that LCF.
Standing starts, ready to rumble in the postseason finals at the Prodigy Racing League Mazda Spec MX-5 Golden Ticket Series on iRacing, powered by SuckerPunch. Look at them fighting almost 3 wide in the background as we rise our way across of turn 1 and then plummeting down into the Andretti hairpin. Your pole sitter is going to cover the inside, run a couple of drivers the long way around as they dive onto the brakes for the first time of asking. It's going to be Bailagi, Chacha, Hawking, Pettyjohn, 1, 2, 3, and 4. As to the first right-hander they will sweep, and one driver in the gravel, it's Ewan Baker.
Oh dear, Ewan into the concrete wall as well. Going to be a little bit of damage on the front end of that car, but other than that, very, very clean stuff and very, very smart stuff from everybody in the top 22. One by one by one by one. Say that 22 more times. You got to go back outside of the top 10 to see the first instance of side-by-side racing. And I don't think that's necessarily going to change early on. You're going to see a lot of drivers focusing on trying to stay in this pack, trying to conserve themselves and keep themselves in the fight for the win at the end. You don't want to fight too hard for 5th right now as Cha-Cha throws it off the road in turn 6.
It's that treacherous corner as well. He'll drop down outside of the top 5 without a shadow of a doubt. He's followed in by Cam Martineau, the ST Esports driver, who's now going to drop down as well onto the brakes into the corkscrew. We've seen some big lunges here, but surely no one going to be too aggressive. Side by side, almost further behind, as it's just Jeffrey London, Camden Hibbett, excuse me, that fight off of the corner. But now your leader's breaking away. Remember, it's only P1 that pays a Prodigy Pass, and the fight behind breaking those away from the draft of the cars at the lead.
And this is exactly what I was talking about. You have to be careful right now. If you're Brandon Hawken or Roberto Prieto, you might be happy making up 1 or 2 spots at the start, but you can't fight with each other right now. You need to focus on moving forward, getting back up to Luis Bialecki, getting within draft range, and trying to continue on in the fight. You don't want to put yourself in the danger of having to fight through that last chance final. You want that Prodigy Pass right now. So look for Brandon Hawken to get aggressive and get conservative and get in line. If you're like Camden Hibbett, for example, in 8th, I think you're just fighting for everything now. You're 5 seconds off the lead. You might be in danger of never getting back to that lead pack.
And remember, he brings with him the experience of these cars in the real world. I'm sure he's probably raced at this track with those machines. Let's take a look, though, at the look of 2 drivers focus on what's very much a close fight at the front. We ride with Brandon Hawken. We look from his perspective inside of his steering wheel. And there's your race leader, the German, Luis Bialecki, alongside. See him very, very calm right now. But ultimately, 27 minutes to go. I feel as though in this situation, Brandon's not going to force the issue. He's been in this place many a times, and it's something else to consider in his situation. The Prodigy Search Selection Committee may be looking at him and going, you know what, he's always in the mix, he's always up towards the front. Maybe he also deserves a shot, and I'm delighted to be able to announce, Joey, that once again, Max Pappas, random call sign, will comprise our judges on the Prodigy Search Selection Committee, which will take place this Thursday on April the 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern. 3 more drivers from this iRacing tournament heading to Prodigy Week.
Nice, the OGs of the Prodigy Search Selection Committee coming back to do some more good work. Thomas Pettyjohn just got by Roberto Prieto. I think there was a little bit of a bobble out of the driver of the number 8 coming through turn 10. That made things pretty easy for Pettyjohn, means that he doesn't lose too much time up to Hawken, but now it's a second between 3rd and 2nd. If Roberto does go for a move here, it's going to slow him down even more. That's why you see Roberto slotting in line, not going for a dive that you might want to go for in turn 1, as he doesn't want to fall even further out of that 1-second draft range. Both of these guys need to hope that they can stay alive here, or else it's going to be a fight for 3rd for the next 26 minutes.
Thomas Pettyjohn, the joke was often when he would race with Romain Grosjean that you have Pettyjohn, you have Grosjean, that's Little Jean and Big Jean, but he's rather big in the camera. You can see him on the left side. To his right side is Roberto Prieto. It's always great, again, to be able to look at these drivers. I did see one driver did ask, is it okay to have a blurred background, because I'm and I'm paraphrasing maybe, but I'm too lazy to clean up around me. The answer to that question, from a commentator's perspective, Joey, is no. We want to be investigatory. We want to look at what you've got behind you.
Yes, unless it's illicit or something we shouldn't be seeing or your local authority shouldn't be seeing, I do want to see it, or else I'm going to be making fun of you for having a glaucoma background and not letting us see back there.
It's a joke that we make quite a lot. Ruben Chacha, by the way, is trying to charge his way on forward. Slices past Jeffrey Lund, but he's got so much work to do to really be able to make anything happen. Down 7 spots from where he started, Joey. One small mistake, big consequences.
Yeah, one small mistake at the most difficult and high-speed corner on the track, it does get multiplied quite a bit. And now he's got to try and focus on. I
know.
You teed that up, didn't you?
The worst part is, I promise you, I didn't actually set that one up.
I was gonna say he's trying to cha-cha his way forward, but no, I'm not even gonna say that anymore because he's made me unhappy. He's got the glaucoma background. I don't even know what's behind him. It could be anything blurred there. It could be a semi-truck. It could be a goat. It could be a white wall. But now we'll never know. It's gonna be a mystery.
Look at that shot. Great shot out of the Andretti hairpin. Ooh, battling further behind. Savio Panicia, Luka Anicic that lean on one another. That's all for 15th and 16th position. Not really where the fighting is going to end up being, although, you know, there's still prizes to be paid out. Maybe not a Prodigy Pass, but for anyone who completed laps in 4 or more race weekends during the regular iRacing official season are eligible to win randomly drawn prizes, which include a SimLab P1X Sim Racing cockpit, a set of Toyo tires if you're in the US, which my car needs some tires. That sounds pretty good right now. 25 $50 gift cards for the Racing Prodigy Coaching Marketplace, supported, of course, by Mazda Motorsports, and then 3 Advanced Sim Racing gift cards, 3 Advanced Motorsports coaching gift cards, all to help these drivers just get that little bit quicker. Even if they're not part of Prodigy Week Part 2, you know, we're looking in the future, Joe. We want some of these drivers to continue building. I mean, like you said, it's weird not to have Michael Romanidis in one of these races.
It's a pipeline. If a pipeline stops, then not much is going to be passing through. You got to keep sending things through, so new drivers, new signups. There's a lot of new names in this field today. Lots of drivers we haven't seen in any of these events before. I honestly couldn't tell you if we've seen Rowan Gill before. I think we may have seen him in one previous event, but he's having a good day today, up in the top 5, up 2 spots from where he started. So another one of those new drivers on the pipeline. Maybe we'll be seeing his name a lot more.
And of course, one of our Spec MX-5 racers in the real world. He's competing in his real world livery. I've got to say, Mazda's always looked quite good, but I like an orange car, and it looks very, very tasty. So does Camden Hibbett's, to be fair. We've got some pretty good liveries, as ever, here in the Prodigy Racing League. This global Spec MX-5 cars, rather, compared to the global MX-5s, where sequential versus H-pad, and I think that's the main difference nowadays between them. Of course, the global MX-5 Cup cars definitely put on a show, and we have 2 judges who have raced across of the Mazda ladder, Chris Nunes and Nathan Nicholson, who are going to be using the judge save. That's what I've decided to call it, Joey. 2 of these drivers will be pulled forward to the LCF by our 2 judges.
They're like angel investors.
Ooh, that's sharks.
I don't even know what that term means, honestly. I was filling out my tax returns the other day, or my taxes the other day, and it asked me if I had any involvement with any angel investors, and I was like, I wish. That would be good.
You know, that sounds like we need a racing reality TV show where racers come on and pitch for investment. There you go.
I'm here for it.
We've just come up with I need to be careful of copyright here. The Prodigy Sharks Den. That definitely cannot get us in trouble.
There you go. It's a combination of the 2. That's okay. And also, I do have to give full disclosure. Rowan Gill, I'm going to be very biased towards him because he's a driver from southwestern Connecticut. Fairfield, Connecticut, represented in the Prodigy Racing League for the first time. There we go. And my condolences to him. He's a JMU student. They got eliminated pretty early in March Madness, so it goes both ways.
Oh, there you go. Basketball made its way onto the Prodigy Racing League, and I've got to make a swift right turn because I know absolutely nothing. Camden Hibbett's in the bottom right corner. Austin Farr's alongside him as they've got now Ruben Chacha on the Chacha trying to find his way on forward. We've already burned almost 10 minutes in this race, and it's been quiet at the front of the field. And Joey, that's why most of our attention so far, I think, has been focused on these drivers slightly further behind.
Yeah, this has been for a little bit of glory. It's not necessarily been for points. It's not necessarily been for much reward, but you know who's watching. Those teams or those judges, they're watching. The fans are watching. If you can pull off a fantastic drive forward, it's almost like the driver of the day vote in some other motorsports. If Reuven Chacha can improve on this P9 after some bad luck, maybe even drive up into the top 5 in the next 20 minutes if he's lucky. If he can pull off the old Romain Grosjean, Jimmy Johnson pass into the corkscrew here, he's definitely going to put himself in for a fan vote. Can't quite get it done that time though.
And again, if you're not watching on our Racing Prodigy YouTube channel, you may want to flip the channel on over to that. The link will be posted for the fan vote as we head into the closing stages here, and so you will want to make sure that if you're here supporting a particular driver, they get their opportunity. If it's not all going to plan, whether they're maybe down the back or even if they're up front here, but not able to really put the pressure onto your race leader, because look at the train that still builds behind. It's 6 strong with now 6 laps complete. Estimated 19 laps are going to be run here as we run under what is now a newly reconstructed bridge at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Dive down out of turn 1 and 2. There's a hospitality area that provides a great viewing area of the drivers as they file their way through this, and it looks very flat, but it's deceptive in many ways, Joey, because I feel as though there's only really one great racing line, and if you don't hit it, you've got to always try and get off the power.
Exactly. That's why I was mentioning practice was so important, and this is the time of the race where it ceases to be Laguna Seca, it becomes Arjuna Seca, and we hear all the fun facts. But I do finally get to go here for the first time in June, so it's not going to be Arjuna Seca anymore. I'm going to be my own Seca too.
No, it's still Arjuna Seca.
It is still Arjuna Seca, but it'll be slightly my Seca. I'll be able to be like, oh, the bathroom right here in pit lane is pretty great.
Thomas Petitjean out into the gravel. And unlike Reuven Chacha, not too far out wide, and so he brings it back under control. But it's the first sign at the front that, you know, they're pushing hard and a mistake's being made. And, well, I'm glad that slip-up didn't cost him more. They're all holding each other around half a second, which is a bigger gap than I think we're accustomed to. Let's be honest, there's been some great racing in MX-5s over the years, both in the real and the sim racing worlds, and usually they're bumper to bumper and knocking 10 bells out of one another.
Well, Brandon Hawkins actually done a really good job here, because for the last 7 minutes or so, 10 minutes or so, he's been in danger of losing the draft. He's been about 8 or 9 tenths back, but he's had a fantastic sequence of laps, has slowly but surely brought that gap down, and he's really within draft range now. About half a second is going to be a lot more useful than being about 8 tenths of a second behind. So if he can just keep slowly moving his way forward, we could have a legitimate battle for the win once again. Got a legitimate battle for the last spot in the top dozen as Tobias Kruken defending from Matt Busa. Again, just for glory, just for some TV time, but that's good enough for these guys. They want every spot they can get.
We would usually, right, in our semi-finals be talking about the top 12 cutoff as where the battle would be, but it does feel a little bit weird not having semi-finals and going straight to this winner-takes-all Prodigy Pass group final. And again, we've got another one of these coming up just after. Matt Busa alongside Tobias Kruken with Angelo Michel, another one of those drivers making the step over from Race Room, where I think he was one of a handful that competed in all 3 of the finals that we had there. And it's great to see that talent goes to where the opportunities are. Go to Jai Fletcher, for example, the second winner of a Prodigy Pass on Street Kart Racing here in Season 1, Part 2. Joey, he downloaded the app 9 days before he won his Prodigy Pass.
Oh, that natural talent. That is natural iPhone kart talent right there. And obviously natural talent that is transferable into the real world. So I'm missing my chance. I still haven't finished my install on Street Kart Racing. I could have got my own Prodigy Pass there, but alas, maybe next year. Maybe next year I'll hop in there and try and beat the next Jai Fletcher. And fail miserably.
It's okay. You've eaten some pickles, but you haven't had the chance to dive into the world of Street Kart Racing just yet.
Unfortunately,
and, we do appreciate the support for Street Kart Racing and the community that they bring to us. 16 minutes left to go, so we're almost halfway through this one as we continue just focusing at what is really, let's be honest, not a fight at the front just yet. If we are going to see a fight, Joey, when does it start? 5, 10 minutes left to go?
Yeah, that tends to be how things have gone in this series so far, but I honestly don't know if Brandon Hawkins can afford to wait that long. If he gets an opportunity, if he gets a couple of tenths closer and really gets close enough to go for a move into turn 1, I don't think he can really afford to wait any longer. Luis Bialecki is so fast. In qualifying, Hawken was about 3/10 off of him per lap. He's been able to bring that down a little bit more in terms of race pace, but if you get the opportunity to take the lead from a guy who's been this strong and this dominant, and you've got Big Jean behind you who's staring you down, I think you're going to want to make that move as soon as you get the opportunity and at least try and take the lead and try and run away and break that up.
Loving the intensity that's just rising, though, here. You can see behind them that Camden Hibbett and Ruben Chacha not really closing, and so I was wondering if Chacha, if he could dispatch Afar and Hibbett relatively quickly, would be able to bridge the gap to your leaders. He's clearly capable of making passes happen, but I don't know if he's going to be able to get the chance there. You can see them just behind this lead group. Oh, is it going to be a look to the inside? Nope, Chacha backs out.
Yeah, his progress has been inhibited.
I guess I can't complain. I made a couple of Chacha puns today so far, haven't I?
There you go. You
Well,
got to do it.
Yeah. Sometimes they're easy, and then sometimes Joey really forces them, but Inhibited is not a bad one. I'm sure some of the commentators of Spec MX5 Racing might want to steal that one in the future. Down, back out through turns. That is technically called turn 2, but I disagree. Turn 1 is what they call the rise that you see over the start-finish line, but that's not really a turn. It's a straight.
Yeah, I call that derangement. Derangement from the people who designed this track. It's maybe a turn if you're in a boat or a large jet, but in any car, like even the absolute highest speed, even if you go to the NASCAR car of tomorrow, one of the worst cars to drive on a road course, it's still not even a turn. So I'm gonna send a strongly worded letter to Scamp or whoever owns this place.
Don't worry, Lewis McLean and myself have officially decided that we have coming up with an international standard association, whatever you want to call it. It's called ADTM, Actually Decent Track Maps, and our first track maps will be published on social media at a date and time to be revealed shortly. But this will solve all issues with track maps. Do you know why, Joey?
Well, I'm thinking about Oxford Plains, the oval right now. Is that 0 turns or 1 turn?
No, we're going to solve the issues there too. You don't know what a great solution is yet. Clearly, you're
I'm ready.
thinking.
I'm ready to hear it. I'm ready for another Nobel Prize worthy option.
So you know what tracks are great? Tracks where they don't have corner numbers and they have corner names instead. So we have decided that no maths will be allowed in the future. Instead, only corner names. And so Oxford Plains, I'm just going to call that one Turny Turn, because you never stop turning, right?
There you go. Turny turn, the circle, something like that. That works.
The circle's too simple. You know, the point of ADTM is if there's ridiculousness, you've got to call it out. So, you know, you never stop turning. Turny turn.
That works. That works.
The corkscrew, by the way, I think we'd probably keep that. That's a pretty good name for a corner.
That is a good name. I mean, yeah, it's weird because the corkscrew part isn't even the corner in a way. The majority of the corner is actually up on the top of the hill, and then you just kind of throw the car down. So I think we might need a name for the part before the corkscrew.
Ooh. They do have a name for that. I think it's the Graham Rahal Straight or something, because we watch fight slightly further.
I think it's the Bobby Rahal
Bobby
Straight.
Rahal, right. There you go. I don't have a track map in front of me. You can see they're fighting and switching back further back. This is Petinari and Blaise Andrich. They're also fighting, though, at the front where Thomas Petitjean has decided no longer the time to wait. He slices past Brandon Hawking through the corkscrew, and suddenly, instantly, gap at the front opens up to 1.3 seconds.
Yeah, was that smart? Was that actually a choice by him? That's going to be a question for the replays, because you can see how big the gap is now. That is almost double of what draft range is, and that's made Luis Bialecki very happy. You can't see his face, and Hawken and Petitjean haven't really changed their expressions at all, but you know they're both unhappy as well, because their job has become so much more difficult and maybe even impossible to bring that gap back down. It's exactly why it's so dangerous to run side by side in a situation like this. You lose so much time just from a moment of that, and maybe a little bit of impatience from these two.
And I think this is also then kicking off those behind to force the issue as well. Rowan Gill passed by the 75 machine, but not done just yet. You can see them setting stuff up as they cycle back down this lowest part of the track where you're basically at the basin at Laguna Seca. Is this going to be 4 cars, though, with now 10 minutes left to go, that are really in the fight? I guess we'll find out. The race leader hasn't really been challenged, though, right? I don't think we've ever seen someone try to make a move.
No, we have not, and I'm in awe of Roope's name, Roope Kirkapa. He does go by his first name. He doesn't go by his middle name, but if his name was just Akusti Kirkapa, think of the good luck that would bring him. That's like every letter of your name, Arjuna, is like the Finnish version of you. Would that be a good luck charm?
It's funny. Someone's actually once told me that my name apparently it could be Finnish. Apparently, I don't get that, but someone's once said that to me.
That's like there's an Italian driver, and I wish I could remember his name, but the Finns all loved him because his last name translated to like gas station convenience store or something.
Nice. Again, Joey loves his puns and whatnot, so he's always on the lookout for every little bit he can. Don't think we're too worried, by the way, about incident points so far. There is a 17x disqualification limit. If you're new to iRacing, every time you run off the track, you get 1 incident point. If you lose control of your car, it's 2 incident points, and big car contacts with your fellow competitors can net you 4, even if it's through no fault of your own. And 17 incident disqualification limit also means that there's no drive-through penalty serving as a soft warning. No, once you hit that limit, Joey, you're instantly yoinked from the racing surface.
The good word, yoinked, yeeted. Those are
yeeted,
all those,
there you go.
All those good Y words. Pettyjean, I don't know if I can write him out entirely yet, because that last lap he was 1/10 faster than Luis Bilecki, so maybe the aggression was worth it. Maybe he knew he had some speed in the tank and can bring down this gap, but I don't know. Judging by this lap so far, Bilecki's still in control, gets a little bit wide out of turn 5, but still a 1.2 second margin. That is very comfortable stuff, and you can see the difference in lap time there. This is the only lap where Pettyjean has actually been faster. Bilecki has been faster every single other time in the last 3 laps.
Gotta say, that camera that we've got placed on the outside just before the run to the corkscrew scares me quite a bit. Just the way that you see the pitching of the car. But these are, remember, momentum-based machines. And I guess that's an interesting point as well, right, Joey, in that, you know, this is in many ways the entry step into motorsports for so many. But for our Prodigy Week participants, they get thrown initially into a BMW for some autocross and some skid pan work, but from then they've got to get to grips with downforce and the Radical SR1.
And knowing how to deal with downforce, knowing how to deal with big power is very important, but also knowing how to race is very important. It's not just a lap time festival. It is attempting to get drivers into an actual racing career where you're going to be wheel to wheel. And there's almost no better place to do that than this, where momentum and racecraft and knowing how to keep your momentum up without making contact and bumping people out of the way is at its most important. Stuff like this into turn 1, where you're trying to make it work the long way around. You don't necessarily have the power to make a move the long way around work, but you've got the opportunity to keep hunting, to keep all over the back of another car, deal with no dirty air whatsoever because you're basically driving a bean. It's the best place to learn racecraft in cars in that first step.
And racecraft, I think, is what we're going to need to see in that last chance finals. Remember, 4 drivers from each of these final races, 30 minutes in length, will be taken to that LCF. They get 10 minutes for qualifying, 2 15-minute races. The second race is a full invert of the field as well, and it will be based on points. Whoever gets the most points scored will win the Prodigy Pass and be heading to Prodigy Week Part 2. Still waiting for Pettyjean to bring the gap down as in this fight for 7th. A little bit of damage to the front of Ruben Chacha's machine hasn't stopped him from really making himself known, and his presence felt behind Camden Hibbert, behind Camden Hibbert, who's not really closing on those leaders anymore. In fact, last time by, they ended up losing about 3/4 tenths of a second. This is great racecraft, and the reason why we should watch this is what's happened to your leader? Oh no! Bilecki's slow!
What has happened to Bilecki? That's coming into the final corner. I think through the penultimate corner. Did he throw it off the road all on his lonesome through turn 10? That is remarkable. Totally in control. Untouchable all day. And suddenly Luis Bilecki, maybe through a fault of his own, maybe through a technical issue, is looking human.
It must have been a slowdown. He didn't go off the track from what I could see, but the question would be, where would he even got the slowdown?
Turn 6 or the corkscrew, I would assume.
Yeah, the only possibility that I can think is the corkscrew, and suddenly things have changed. Let's take a look at the replay. Let's not dawdle. It's a wide shot that we'll see. Oh, he was not great on entry, and down through the bottom, he cuts the inside.
Alex Zanardi can do that, but you can't. One mistake. That's why you can never get complacent. Even if you are in total control of a race, even if you are seemingly untouchable, one mistake can take you out of it. Little bit of lost focus, little bit too late in the brakes, and he does go through the path that Alex Zanardi once took, but unfortunately it has been about 30 years since then. We do have slowdown penalties now, and he does a good job of serving it, minimizes his losses, does it in a heavy braking zone to make sure he doesn't lose too much time, but that is 3 spots gone, and he might get some of them back here, as there it is again with Hawken and Pettyjean.
Pettyjean's wheeling that car. He'll make contact with Prato as he rejoins the surface. Bialecki's taken both those spots back in the blink of an eye, but moments of drama, 5 minutes left to go, and I wonder if now the gap behind too large for anyone else to close on down.
How has this flipped back in Luis Bialecki's direction? This is literally one singular lap after he got that slowdown, and suddenly he's exactly in the same position with exactly the same lead. That's absolute craziness, but that was aggression that we knew we were going to see in the final 5 minutes. Little bit of contact through the corkscrew ends up adding up to a little bit more contact, and then poor old Roberto Prieto, the innocent party in that situation, did absolutely nothing wrong, and unfortunately he comes out the worst of it.
It's one of those days where it's not much action, but when it does happen, we seem to miss it. Ruben Chacha and Camden Hibbert fighting behind, but really now, final laps of this race, let's keep our eyes to the front where the Prodigy Pass is going to be paid out. Bialecki's got that advantage to Brandon Hawken, who's been in many close situations, but never, I think, has he been this close to a Prodigy Pass. He's got 4 minutes left to go. This is his preferred sim. He's bounced across from R-Factor, Race Room, and now back to iRacing. Let's see what he can do. Can he close the margin down?
He's only going to have a couple of laps at the line. I don't think it's going to be 2 laps. I think it might be 2 laps at the line. Depends on how quick they can get to the line. It might be a race against the clock, but and see the focus there. He's not giving up. He probably knows that 1.7 seconds, unless he's literally a full second faster per lap than Bialecki in these final laps, then he might have a shot. I think he knows that's probably not going to happen, but he is going to push 100%. He's got full focus in those eyes. He's got a now iconic camera angle here in the Prodigy Racing League. He's not going to give up, but I think he knows that there is a low percentage he makes this happen.
I really enjoy that camera angle as well, and I hope that we can get more of that in the future. Fighting behind, but all for 11th and 12th positions. Matt Buser, Tobias Kruken alongside one another. Michelle and Panicha fighting as well for 14th and 15th positions. And again, these drivers will all get their opportunity. A 60-second video clip will be submitted to the Prodigy Search Selection Committee, and Max Pappas, along with Random Callsign, will operate as our judges for this iRacing selection show that will take place on Thursday, April 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And I'm also delighted to say that Max Pappas will be joining us May 13th for Prodigy Week Part 2 to be one of our coaches. And that is what Prodigy Week is all about, learning from people with such amazing backgrounds looking to give back on this Ethereal pipeline.
And Max Pappas has raced in, I think, every racing discipline you could possibly think of, from Formula 1 to IndyCar to NASCAR to sports cars, basically everything on 4 wheels. That guy has had his shot in, so very few better people to learn from, but there's going to be even more in addition to him in the coming weeks. There's a very, very big brain trust to learn from. Yeah, it's almost too much. I don't know who you would go to first when you've got Max, you've got Random Callsign, you've got a whole host of other people. Who do you even go to first without getting your brain blown up?
Yeah, it's crazy, and I'll be honest, Prodigy Week Part 1 was my first real introduction to the sensation that is Connor Zilic, and it's been really cool to see Connor, who replaced Max when he had to go and coach William Byron during championship weekend last year for the NASCAR season finale. Connor Zilic stepped in, and he's had a blockbuster start to this year. Will we see the white flag out? It's going to be close, but don't think it will be as close as what we had at Brands Hatch when we were trying to count thousands. It will be the white flag officially. Bialecki has got 1.5 seconds to hold on to a trip to the Atlanta Motorsports Park in 36 days' time.
Now, don't do what you did about 3 laps ago, Luis. You've got this on lock. It's even more on lock than it once was. What in the world?
He's blown his engine! Not 1, but 2 mistakes, and there's the heartbreak, there's the anguish. This is what it means to the drivers, and Brandon Hawkins suddenly finds himself in a situation that no one could have anticipated.
I don't know how we're going to have a second final after this with all the drama we've had so far. I don't know what Brandon Hawkins thinking right now. He hasn't given us a single change in his expression. Luis is absolutely destroyed, just like his engine. And now we're going to have a replica, Arjuna, of what happened between Brandon Hawkins and Thomas Pettijohn a couple of laps ago. If Thomas can get close enough to go for a dive into the corkscrew, you know he's going to go for it. He got so aggressive last time. I think he might be a little bit too far back to try it this time, but that didn't stop him a couple of laps ago.
I don't think he can. It might be into the final corner. How can you blow your engine, you may be wondering? Maybe too aggressive on the downshifts. It's happened to me in some big sim races. I'll blame my teammates for it, though, not me. Pettijohn's going to force the issue, though. Make some contact.
Oh.
Brandon Hawkins, tongue out, car saved, and another shot to Pettijohn. He gets forced wide. Kirkupa's going to slide his way on forward to second. This has been crazy. This is what the Prodigy Racing League is all about. Drivers knowing the opportunities that they have been given. And the smile says it all. Brandon Hawkins been here and done it all, and he's finally heading to the Atlanta Motorsports Park to be part of Prodigy Week Part 2.
That is fantastic stuff from Brandon. Lots of aggression on the final lap, but the contact was given to Hawkins. He gave a little bit of a hip check back. I think that was totally fair, totally even. And very few drivers could be more deserving than Brandon Hawkins. You got to give a shout out to Kirkipa as well, getting up to second in the end. The Finns in our YouTube chat are going wild, but nobody's going more wild than Brandon Hawkins. Fantastic run for him, and a roller coaster of emotions.
Wow, that was incredible, and I don't even know what our judges can take from that other than these drivers are willing to put everything on the line, and that's what we saw. You know what I think we should do? Joey, do you disagree with me? Before we go and talk to the drivers, let's go back and watch that entire final lap in its entirety, because what drama we had to live through.
Yes, please. This is where it all started. I mentioned Luis Bialecki just had to be mistake-free. He's had to do the same thing he'd been doing for 29 minutes, and then the money shift comes in. Kablamo, gearbox, engine, smoke, particles everywhere, and Luis, that's the worst thing that can happen to you. A mechanical failure of potentially your own doing, and yeah, that's the end of the day for him. And then I'm so excited to see this Pettijohn and Brandon Hawkins battle through those final couple of corners. He was a little bit too far back to go for his move into the corkscrew, had an excellent run down the hill, and then it all came undone. But right here, this was keeping himself as close as humanly possible, keeping himself within about half a second, and hoping that move could come a little bit later.
And you kind of wondered, was it going to be into the corkscrew? Pettijohn had tried it once before, but I feel like they had definitely saved up some of those off tracks, had the ability to run wide to really force the issue. And then it was that opportunity into the final corner to really make something happen that I thought was going to be the chance. But no, Pettijohn instead tried to force his nose to the inside. And what car control to hold on to the machine from Brandon Hawkins here, almost perpendicular to the track for a moment.
Yeah, that door was not really open through turn 9, and then through turn 10, Hawkins says, you know what, if you're going to do that to me, I'm going to move over just a little bit. But you will see there that Hawkins did actually give Pettijohn a full car's width. The contact just came from a little bit of air between the two cars. So I think Hawkins totally clean in that scenario, totally deserving of this win. And the best driver over the course of those 30 minutes. Minimal mistakes from him. Actually, 0 mistakes from him as far as I know, because he wasn't the driver who made contact in any scenario. He was clean and perfect and got that win.
And don't forget that the link to the fan vote is in the Racing Prodigy YouTube chat. If you're watching on other channels, you want your driver to get a second chance in the LCFs, now's your time to vote. Don't wait, though. It's time for us to go and chat to a very, very happy Brandon Hawkins. Brandon, I mean, what's even going through your mind right now? You've been a part of so many of our Prodigy Racing League journeys, and now you're finally a holder of a golden ticket and going to the Atlanta Motorsports Park. How does it feel?
Man, I almost don't have words, man. That was such an incredible race. So much stuff was going on, and man, I'm so glad I was able to race and do it. And oh man, this is gonna be like, it could potentially be like absolutely life changing. This is absolutely incredible. I'm so excited, and wow, what a race there with Lewis. And I don't have my sorry, everybody in the top 3 there. And oh man, that was a battle. I thought I thought it was almost over there in the corkscrew. Got pushed wide a little bit, and then then I got the slowdown penalty, and then yeah, on the last lap, it's so easy to blow these things up because you want to downshift really early to be able to it's so much more efficient on the brakes, and I saw smoke come out of Lewis's back end. I was like, oh man, I just gotta hold on for one more lap, and I took it a little bit too conservatively going into the bus stop, and then number 7 was right there, and man, he dove it in and made a little bit of contact, but I was man, that was so close, but I'm so happy. Thank you so much to everybody at Racing Prodigy, all the series partners. Man, this is absolutely incredible.
And you know, Brandon, you jumped across the platforms as well. Talk to us about that from your perspective. One of the few drivers that I can think of that did iRacing, R Factor 2, and Race Room. I know you as the iRacing guy. How easy was it for you to go and jump onto the other platforms?
It wasn't easy at all. Yeah, for the R Factor 2 race, that was my first time ever racing in R Factor 2, and it was just a lot of it. It's the driving styles are just like completely different, even with similar cars such as on Race Room and iRacing. You can definitely push the car a lot harder on R Factor 2 and Race Room, and then on iRacing you have to dial it back just a little bit, and so yeah, I'm definitely used to the iRacing way of driving, and so having to like truck it into the corners was a little bit new to me, but I figured it out relatively well. Got the hang of it really well there in Race Room at Mid Ohio, and came so close there, and then to come back to my main sim iRacing, I knew I had an okay chance at it, but I wasn't the absolute fastest. There were a few of them that were a little bit faster, but I held on there at the end, and it was just made sure I was in the right position, and everything fell into place there.
Well, Brandon, congratulations on the Prodigy Pass. I can't wait to see how you go at the Atlanta Motorsports Park. It's 36 days away. Enjoy this win, and we'll see you out there for the action.
Yes, thank you so much once again. I hope to see everybody there. I'm looking so forward to it. It's like this is like one of like the coolest things I'll ever be able to do. So I just like to thank everybody involved, and man, I'm so glad I was able to race into it. That was a battle, and man, I am so happy right now. Thank you everybody.
Brandon Hawken joining us for a bit of a chat, and what a chat it was. I love seeing the smile. I love seeing the emotion. That's what this is all meant to be about. However, one final done, one more still left to go, and we can't afford to dawdle because they're already racing into the thick of the action. Unfortunately, we've already missed the first 7 or so minutes of it because this is what fast frenetic racing is all about. But Joey, Matt Caruana, Eduardo Leo, Jaume Torres, Will Redford, Thomas Bellerman, and then Byron Mitchell. Top 6 as they run right now.
Yeah, when you see Matt Caruana on an entry list, you don't necessarily need to see the first few minutes of the race to know he's going to find himself up in the front. He's been with us in some of these iRacing events, in some of the Race Room events, and I think in some of the R Factor events, if I'm not mistaken, and he's been very fast in every single one of them. Another one of those drivers who's looking for a Prodigy Pass after lots and lots of attempts, and he's doing a great job so far. But Eduardo Leo, just like in the previous race, within touching distance, within about half a second. Jaume Dalmases in just the barest range as well. There's a lot of unfamiliar and a lot of new names in this race that could try and do something big and make their name for the first time.
And again, remember, we've already seen a bit of drama, and I
there's
think
the
we've just
slowdown.
seen a bit more. Matt Caruana's the next driver that will pick up the slowdown. And I think we've also now just got to keep in mind in terms of on downshifts, what's going to happen. Oh, Will Redford off into the kitty litter, grabs control of his car, back into the tarmac, but down to 6th position, allows Eduardo Leo to build a breakaway at the front, and you can hear the carnage behind through the final corner. Will Redford in the wall and instantly out of the race.
Will Redford is ready to go home because turn 9, turn 10, and turn 11 is probably the worst run he's ever had through there. Contact, a little more contact, and finally contact with the wall ends his day. But how quickly can things change? We tune in to Matt Caruana in dominant control in the lead, and then suddenly, maybe a little bit of a commentator's curse, it all comes undone for him, and Eduardo Leo has a 2-second lead out of nowhere.
And don't forget, by the way, race 1, the voting closes in just under a minute's time, so get to the Racing Prodigy YouTube channel ASAP, click the link and get your voice and get your vote heard to get 2 drivers from that first final into the last chance final that we've still got in front of us. I mean, we've been deposited, by the way, into some really intense fighting. Luca Becker's alongside Byron Mitchell, and look at how damaged these cars are. And, you know, you may think that, you know, you can get away with damage, but that's going to slow you down in a straight line. We saw it with the likes of Weston Workman at Daytona at the start of the Global MX-5 Cup calendar in 2024. Got to be very, very careful with how much damage you get to the bodywork.
And that will, you might not think necessarily that in a car like this, where it's essentially a road car, you might not think aerodynamics are important, you might not think damage is important, but it definitely is, especially when you're in a field as hotly contested as this, where it comes down to tenths and thousandths instead of seconds. Yeah, a little bit of damage is definitely going to hurt you. But Matt Caruana's hurting right now. We ride on board with him in P4. He's going to be looking for P3, for P2 potentially, but his biggest hope is going to be that a Louis Spilakey situation happens for Eduardo Leo. He makes a mistake, opens up that door, because a 2-second margin, that is almost insurmountable. Caruana's on the attack, though. He gets to the inside to turn 1, and a little bit of door rubbing gets him through.
Thomas Bellarmine's the one that gives up the position, but all as 2 seconds at the front for the Altus Esports driver, Eduardo Leo, who was a bit of a standout in qualifying in the IMSA Esports Global Championship. He was racing in the Cadillac GTP, which I'm not here to talk about BOP because that is a discussion for another day. All I will say is that wasn't a car that had much success over the course of the season in many ways, but he was always up towards the front, got pole on a couple of occasions, beating some of the very best who have done it in sim racing, and he's a very, very strong driver. Keep an eye out for him. If he's not going to get caught, he won't probably make a mistake. I'm not so sure that he's going to fall afoul to the rev limit that we've already seen strike a couple of these drivers. That's a very striking purple, red, and white Spec MX-5. I love it. If that's the livery of a real-world driver, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm almost hungry. I'm looking forward to lunch here in a little bit, and some purple, some red, some whites, making me think, you know, watermelon and raspberry. They're all just trying to make me hungry, Arjuna. The SuckerPunch cars too, for that matter.
Yeah, but you've got your pickled chips if you want to grab a bite during one of these races, if you need the champ of chomp. But of course, long battle train that now builds behind Jordan Johnson. It goes all the way back to Carl Ridley in 13th position. Crazy to see that margin just stretch on out between these drivers, but it goes to show that right now I don't think too many are forcing the issue. Still with the 18 minutes to go, going to be a look at the inside of Luca Becker by Joshua Soto, and he should be able to slide his way forward as they come over what is technically called turn number 1, but we're not going to call it that, right?
No, we're going to refuse. We're going to make our own path. We're going to be revolutionary, and it's going to be fantastic. Yuan Shi Lin, I've seen his name a lot in the last couple of weeks in sort of the qualifying period of this series, and he's been very, very fast in this car. Been looking forward to seeing him make his debut in this series. Maybe a little bit lower than he would have liked with how fast he was in the time trials, but still top dozen, first race with us in the Prodigy Racing League. And he's got his iRacing accomplishments printed out and taped to the wall next to him.
And he's a driver that's competed in the Spec Racer Ford for many, many a season. Great to see him in these similar sort of machines where grassroots racing really takes place. Outside for Jordan Johnson, inside for Byron Mitchell, and somehow they get out of the corner, both still in a straight line. However, Joshua Soto takes advantage. He's just one by one picking his way forward. It's been great to see, but runs out of steam, runs out of momentum, deep under the brakes, and Byron Mitchell holds on.
They're still side by side directly behind Soto and Becker, and Maiko Rosa. Didn't mention him, kind of in the epicenter of all this stuff. He's right there and ready to pounce, ready to potentially make it into the top 10 if he gets the opportunity. Imagine if this was the race for the lead. I think we should just say that we're going to change the format immediately right now. We're going to have our cutoff for the top 10, and we're gonna focus on this.
So what we're going to tell Eduardo Leo is he's got to drop back in the field because his bright green SuckerPunch car is making a beeline for the hills. 2 seconds now clear of Jaume Dalmas, who sits in that bright green entry, the number 26 car. Matt Caruana has been unable to make the pass. Behind them, this is where the action's kicking off, and have just been notified on my timing screen. Luca Becker seems to have been disqualified also for car contacts potentially. Dropped down the timing order. I wonder if he got tangled up with anybody.
I think he did make contact with Joshua Soto, who fell down the order as well. Didn't see what happened, but potentially a dive into turn 1 gone wrong for both of those guys. And that is another disqualification. Will Redford was the earlier one as well. Unfortunate for them. Jordan Johnson, though, talk about a driver who's been on the way up, started P10, already up into P6, sort of within view of the top 5 with Matias Arevalo a little bit further forward, but big movers, making no mistakes, moving cleanly through the field. That's going to be very important to keep yourself alive. And, you know, those judges are watching for the drivers who can keep it clean and move forward at the same time.
Yeah. Judges, by the way, that have had their say for race 1 and announced now that the fan vote results from that first final are official. More than 500 votes, and it's going to be Henrik Pettinari and Raven Chacha, the two that will fight in the LCF. Looking forward to seeing how they will end up faring. This is what happened, though, slightly further back down the field as they headed off down into the Andretti hairpin. You can see Joshua Soto and Luca Becker. I think that's a self-inflicted mistake there, and he gets us immediately escorted off the track.
Yep, I call that a little bit of bowling and unfortunately a little bit of karma immediately after. That's not going to be any solace for Joshua Soto. He lost a couple of spots from it anyway, but at least his aggressor was punished. Matt Caruana going for it again. Now he's back onto the podium. Book him there. 1 more second up to Jaume. 2 seconds up to Eduardo Leo might be difficult, but second place definitely possible for Matt Caruana.
They've lost a bit of ground instantly as well. You can tell just how quickly these momentum-based cars, when you do end up fighting, do lose out on time. So got to be careful of that. I'll begin the climb up the hill where, you know, Laguna Seca is notoriously known for sound limits. This is where, on the exit of this uphill left-hander, you do have to be careful for the hut of noise sound detector, whatever they call it, that's on the outside. Outside line as well for Jordan Johnson, loses 1 as JD Rodriguez gets on through. His SuckerPunch car then blocks the line for Byron Mitchell, who gets a shove from behind. Another car instantly disqualified. They're playing very risky and fast and loose with the incident limit. That's 3 inside of 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, that was JD Rodriguez going for the block coming up into turn 6. I think there was a little bit of car contact in the process of doing that, and unfortunately that got him to the incident limit and got him disqualified right then and there. Yeah, I don't know if that aggression was necessarily necessary, and if he was so close to the incident limit, maybe not the smartest move there. That's another thing that tells you how good it is to keep a cool head, how important it is to not get over-aggressive, not get too hot in the cockpit. Just think about finishing the race if you're in a situation like this. And don't get yourself disqualified for making a block.
And remember, incident limits aren't an iRacing exclusive thing. Philip Dreiss lost his chance to fight at Brands Hatch in the second round of our Prodigy Racing League Mazda MX-5 Cup Golden Ticket Series on Race Room event final, and so got to very much keep yourself in contention. Big lob up the inside by Byron Mitchell. He might even get stopped in time, you know. Gives himself a little bit of room, though, to allow Jordan Johnson to switch back underneath. Great racing. They've lost 5.5 seconds in the space of 3 or 4 laps to Matias Arevalo. That's up the road in 5th position. Behind, you've got Maita Rosa, Carl Ridley, Wanji Lin, Dakota Fripp, former Vendaval Racing driver, of course, and then Joshua Soto. That's the train that sits behind them, but back up front, focus in on the fight for the Prodigy Pass. Eduardo Leo starting to be closed by those behind.
Yeah, 2 seconds still separating, but now you see a 1. That is important. If you can just slowly but surely move forward, even get yourself within a second, the barest end of the draft range, that can suddenly make your win possibilities much, much bigger. But there are 12 minutes to go. If Eduardo can keep it consistent, he'll probably be in with a pretty good shot of holding on to this. But if Jaume has done a little bit better job of keeping those tires underneath him, if he can keep just inching forward, just chipping away at that margin, he might have a shot, but he's got to be consistent. He needs to do what he did on this lap every single lap until the end of the race.
It's interesting, we watched Wanji Lin. He was taking a hand off the wheel to manually use an H-pad and shifter. Eduardo Leo, he's got his Formula rim out. He's still paddle shifting happily away. So is Jaime Dalmez apparently on the right-hand side of your screen. So the focus on both of those drivers' face. And I'm just getting ready right now, Joey, because I made a few comments that the first race was maybe a little bit slow at times. And then at the end, what happened? Definitely not slow.
Yeah, that's always a possibility. So we can't rest at all. The drivers can't rest at all either. You never know what's going to happen in a race like this, and you never know what's going to happen in that battle for 6th, by the way, because Byron Mitchell and Jordan Johnson have just thrown another couple of haymakers at each other. Byron Mitchell with the seemingly the support of the entire nation of South Africa behind him in the chat once again gets P6 back.
I like as well that we do have an international flair to Prodigy Week. I think last year, the 12 drivers represented by, I think, 9 different nations for part 1. Already, we've had 2 Polish drivers, 1 Brazilian driver, a Greek driver, and then 2 Brits, along with Julian Klaffenbach, who technically qualified from Season 1, Part 1, who will be part of Prodigy Week Part 2. And so once again, looking forward to an international audience joining us come May the 13th. From the Atlanta Motorsports Park, a wonderful racing facility, and one of those tracks that I think some of these drivers may go and download some of the other sims to try and get some practice laps to get ready to go in that Radical SR1. Delighted also to be able to announce that the fan vote has been joined up with the judges' vote. So alongside of Henrique Pettinari and Raven Chacha, Rowan Gill, Lewis Bielica are the 2 judges' votes. And so I'm glad that after, let's be honest, Luis slightly made a mistake of his own to blow his engine. He made a couple of mistakes to get a slowdown as well. He will get another chance, Joey, come the LCFs.
Yeah, and suddenly he becomes the instant favorite. Everybody else in the LCF is going to be very, very unhappy right now that Luis is in there because he was dominant. If it wasn't for those 2 mistakes, he was winning that first race. So he gets a chance at glory, gets a chance at redemption, and I think he'll definitely be able to take that. Rowan Gill as well gets another chance to do a little bit of glory as well, a little bit of a smaller field. Unfortunately, one driver not in those 4 picked was Rope Kirkpa, but I think we'll definitely see him in some further events. He'll definitely be looking for another shot after that 2nd place finish. After all that fan support, I don't think you've heard the last from him.
And again, we've already talked about 4 drivers out of this group. 1 final moving forward to the LCF. Your opportunity to vote for the fan vote for the 2nd final going to open in a handful of minutes time. If you're not already watching on the Racing Prodigy YouTube channel, make sure you are, because time's ticking away. Your time to have your voice heard as well will start to wind down. I don't know, though, we continue to watch your leaders. Jaime Dalmez is closing, 8 and a bit minutes to go. Eduardo Leo's not making a mistake just yet. I wonder if he's keeping some incident points in the bag just in case he gets closed and he has to really start to push once more.
That might be it. It's an interesting position to be in as a leader here. If you have such a margin, you can afford to play a couple of games, because as you cross the line here, it's going to be, I think, 5 laps to go to the end of the race. Last lap, Jaime Dalmazes was 2/10 faster than Eduardo Leo. Even if he does that 5 laps in a row, that's only 1 second of margin taken off. That means he's going to be about half a second off at the finish. That means Eduardo Leo still wins the race. So I think this might just be a little bit of smart driving from Eduardo, backing off just a little bit, making sure he can bring it to the end of the race, making sure his shifts are safe and comfortable, and just playing with the drivers behind him a little bit, because he knows he has a margin that he can comfortably play with.
Hear a bit of the tire screech as he winds towards the long left-hand climb. It's quite calm, looks quite focused, but again,
I can't tell what time of day it is behind him. Is it day or night?
I think it's probably going on evening, something like that. But you know, how old, how young do you think this driver is?
17.
That's what it says on his Twitter. And again, it's something that I was kind of talking about with the judges. I was having a bit of a chat with them just before we started today. And we were joking about some of the drivers in Prodigy Week Part 1 had never been in a racing car. Some of the drivers in Prodigy Week Part 1 had never driven a real car, period.
And then some of the drivers in Prodigy Week have probably been sim racing before some of these drivers were born.
Yes.
We've heard some of those stories about the old Grand Prix Legends days and the old early 2000s stuff. Yeah, if you're 17, that means Eduardo Leo was born in 2007 or 2006.
Man, you're making me feel very, very...
Those are not
old.
real years to be born in. That's insane.
Man, I'm turning the big 3-0 this year, apparently. I refuse to admit that. I refuse to acknowledge it, but apparently it's going to happen to me. We do maybe have traffic. That's Braden Hope, who I don't think is going to end up being too much of a factor for either Eduardo Leo or the trailing cars behind. Remember as well, mentioned it a couple of times, but this coming Thursday, April 11th, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Racing Prodigy YouTube channel. You can join us for the Prodigy Search Selection Show for our iRacing Tournament. 3 Prodigy passes will be on the line. Max Pappas alongside Random Call Sign will comprise of our committee to pick our very, very worthy winners and find out what happens there. What's happened to Jaume Dalmas, because he's just dropped off the timing screen as well.
Has he been disqualified? Or was that a technical issue for him? I didn't see him run off the road, but if he's just been playing with track limits all race long, he may have just gotten disqualified from his final incident point.
That is the margins that, again, have been really keeping us focused at the start of this race. Let's see if we can ride. Probably the best perspective is going to be ride with Matt Caruana and just see what he saw and when that car just appeared, right?
Let's do it. Riding on board with Caruana behind him. Does Jaume throw it off the road here? Oh, he clips. Yes, he does. He clips the sausage, throws it in the sand, and bye-bye. Incident limit. Ouch.
Okay, here's where I'm gonna make a comment where Lewis Bilaker made the mistake where he blew his engine, right? That's something where the judges will go, all right, that's maybe something we'll look at. When you intentionally keep running wide, the judges will also have to keep that in mind, and maybe those behind that weren't running so aggressive, the likes of Bellarmine, who now gets in front of Caruana, might be a little bit more worthy, if that's the right word, of the judges' save.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about Matt Caruana probably being the favorite there, assuming he doesn't win the fan vote at that. He's been strong. He was definitely going to be in contention for the win, if not for some early trouble from one little mistake with a slowdown. I think Matt Caruana is definitely going to be number one there in that decision. Or maybe Eduardo Leo ends up getting one of the judges' votes if he ends up having a mistake that loses him this race. That's still possible in the final 4 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think that Caruana is too happy. He did race in the British Formula 4 Esports Championship last year. Seen him as one of the rising stars in many ways of British sim racing. And this will be a chance for him, of course, to make his next step on that eat-a-real journey. And, of course, be a part of that Prodigy draft and the real World Prodigy Racing League series down the line. But, of course, that's all still left to come. This time by, it's going to be 2 laps to go, isn't it?
It will be. I don't know if it's going to be a race against the clock. I think it is just solidified 2 laps to go. The battle for second, essentially the battle for the win, or maybe just a battle for who gets one of those judges' picks. Maybe one of them goes to one of those drivers down the field that ran into trouble early, and one of them goes to whoever wins that battle between Caruana and Bellarmine. I don't know, but these guys are trying to get their own glory as well. Jordan Johnson, Kyle Ridley, Fripp, Rosa Soto. These guys have been under a blanket all day long. About 7 drivers fighting for these spots, and now it all comes down to 2 more times around.
Gotta wonder if Kyle Ridley, 13 spots gained, he could be one of those very much looked at by the judges to say, you know what, he didn't have a great qualifying effort, showed some great racecraft in the Aztec Simsport white Mazda Spec MX-5 machine. Maybe he's one that deserves a bit of a save as well. I don't want to try and be the judge because, quite frankly, as I told them, I don't envy the task they have to try and pick just one of the talented 23. There's many different ways they could look at it. It might be a fight for second, though. Eduardo Leo still just out of drafting range as they'll rise to the top of the hill and begin that plunge down the corkscrew for the penultimate time.
It just hurts your spine seeing him send it through turn 6 like that. It's difficult enough in sim to be that committed, but just imagine doing it in real life when you're feeling those G-forces, when you're feeling that spinal compression, and then you're feeling going down the corkscrew a little bit like a roller coaster. You're literally plummeting down. I don't know the exact grade of the corkscrew, but I imagine it's about 45 degrees, dropping down stories upon stories of height. It's good preparation in sim, but all these drivers, they really want a chance to do this in the real world. They want to feel those real forces. And the Atlanta Motorsports Park, not too dissimilar from Laguna Seca. Tight and twisty, huge drops. It's a good place to prepare yourself for that.
Not a bad point, actually. The final corner has plenty of elevation change, and maybe it's not as dramatic as the corkscrew and maybe not as famous, but definitely quite intimidating. As the white flag flies, we're about to find out the second winner of a Prodigy Pass here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in the postseason finals of the Prodigy Racing League Spec MX-5 Golden Ticket Series on iRacing, powered by SuckerPunch. Still 1.4 at the front. Bellarmine and Caruana going to keep each other honest, but I mean, we missed the first 5 or so minutes. I think based on what we saw though, Joey, this final a lot wilder, a lot more unpredictable, as Kyle Ridley and Jordan Johnson get disqualified from this race as well.
Oh no. Two of the biggest success stories, Kyle Ridley up 13 spots, Jordan Johnson up about 6 spots, and both of them plummeting down the order. I think Chad Pettycord might have run into some trouble as well. This has been a far, far more difficult race for these drivers to keep it on the track than it was in the previous heat.
Checkered flag is shown on screen.
Oh.
What exactly is happening? I will be honest in saying I don't quite know. Matt Caruana has just been unofficially removed from the race. It's a little bit of confusion, but again, it's all at the front where it's really going to matter. The clock's going to strike 0. The checkered flag is going to fly, and it is going to be a sigh of relief. And for Eduardo Leo in that SuckerPunch Spec MX-5 on his debut in the Prodigy Racing League, a great debut. He's headed to the Atlanta Motorsports Park in 36 days' time to compete in Prodigy Week Part 2.
Yeah, I think that was officially the finish, so Eduardo Leo didn't do an extra lap. I think he does officially get credited with that, but Matt Caruana from 3rd, one of the favorites of the day. Maybe a little bit of confusion if he knew it was the final lap or the white flag, but man, we had like 12 finishers after all of that.
Well, I get the feeling as though we'll probably have a few moments anyway between this race finishing, us moving on forward to our LCFs. But again, just a reminder, if you're not already watching on the Racing Prodigy YouTube channel, make sure you're heading there right now. The fan vote about to begin. 2 drivers from the second final will be a part of the 8-driver last chance final. 10 minutes of qualifying, 2 15-minute races with a full invert for those second of those races. It should be fun. It should be exciting. And while we wait for the official word to come down, there's the donuts being thrown onto the track by your race winner. And we'll grab a look at your race results and grab a word with your race winner as well. Eduardo Leo, the Italian, heading to Prodigy Week Part 2. Thomas Bellarmine, 1.1 seconds back at the end. Not quite sure what happened on that final lap with Martes Alvello and then Byron Mitchell, Dakota Fripp, the rest of your top 5. Michael Rosa, Joshua Soto, and then Wanji Lin, Sam Schlachlik, and then Brian Hediad round out your top 10. 11th going the way of Michael Sikorsky, Trevor Anderson in close pursuit, and then Aviv Cohen and William Augustine, the final drivers on the lead lap. 1 lap down for Matt Caruana, Jordan Johnson, and Carl Ridley. Chad Pettycord along with Braden Hope and Jaume Dalmez also unfortunately not seeing the end. JD Rodriguez, Luca Becker, Will Redford, and then Angel Almaraz and Stefan Vettel round out your top 25. And just a reminder, voting now open for the fan vote for Final 2. So you should make sure you're on the Racing Prodigy YouTube channel. You're paying attention to make sure your voice is heard. Let's bring in, though, the winner of this second final. Let's have a chat with Eduardo Leo. Eduardo, talk to us about that. It seemed like plenty of action behind you. You, though, fortunately didn't have to deal with it too much.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. That was quite difficult. Honestly, I had a lot of fun. The combo was pretty interesting, but yeah, I caught the opportunity when it came to me. As I think it was Matt who took the slowdown and then created a bit of a gap that was crucial, because then you can push and focus on yourself and not on the drivers behind. And I think that's all. I did all the rest of the laps when I was alone, like trying to not do any stupid mistakes, especially with the manual shifting with this car. It's really easy to blow up the engine, so I made sure I didn't miss shift or anything, so I dropped a bit the pace, but that worked out in the end. I managed, I think, pretty well. Honestly, I think I wasn't the fastest on track, but yeah, I just caught the opportunity when it came, and yeah, I guess I managed to do a clean race.
That's the sim racing answer. We've heard it all polished and stuff. Give us the emotion. You've just won the Prodigy Pass. You're going to drive the Radical SR1. How's that feel right now?
That's unbelievable. I think I've never won a contest, and imagine winning my first one, like of this caliber. Like I cannot wait now. I'm just counting the days.
It's only about a month away. I saw you last year in the IMSA Esports Global Championship be very, very quick in qualifying, and that really, I think, showed me your potential. What do you think this opportunity means to you, though, to make this transition on this E2Real pipeline, to potentially have a chance to be part of the Prodigy draft, to sign a professional real-world racing contract in the Prodigy Racing League? What would that mean to you down the road?
Well, I hope I can show my skills to everyone, also in real-life racing, I guess. I don't know. I think I can transition all my skills I've learned on sim racing also to real life, because we've saw a lot of good drivers doing the transition, and I think I hope at least that I will be the one that gets the opportunity.
Well, looking forward to seeing you out there in 36 days time. Enjoy this feeling. Can't wait to see you out on track. We'll see you at the Atlanta Motorsports Park.
Thank you, Arjuna. Thank you, everyone.
Eduardo Leo, your winner here in the second of our finals from the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Now, a couple of moments, Joey, for us to calm down a little bit, for the 8 drivers to get into this next race session and to get focused at the task at hand. What do you think's going through their minds as they've been given one final opportunity, still, of course, waiting for that fan and judge vote to come to an end for race number 2?
Well, they probably let out a very long and primal scream, knowing that Luis Bielica is in the LCF with them. They don't want to deal with him. They don't want to have to try and beat him, but unfortunately, the reality is he is going to be the big favorite. He is going to be exceptionally difficult to get through if he can keep it mistake-free. But it is a wild card of a format, Arjuna. It's not just a 30-minute race like we've seen in these 2 finals. It's 2 races. The grid is reversed in the 2. It's not necessarily just going to be about winning. It's going to be about winning the first race and then potentially driving your way forward in the second race as well. Offense and defense, both required.
Yes, and I like as well, right, that 15 minutes means there's not much time, so we're not going to be sitting around for as much of the race and waiting in some ways for the action to develop, and that's sometimes where we do end up sitting and waiting. Didn't get much of that in Final 2, much to our pleasure. 2 judges, as mentioned, though, helping save 2 drivers from each of our final. We're delighted to have Chris Nunes and Nathan Nicholson join us as our judges. Very experienced on the Mazda ladder, understand what these drivers are fighting for, their opportunity. I caught up with them earlier today to have a bit of a chat with them about their involvement in Prodigy Week Part 2. We're joined now by our judges here for the finals of the Spec MX-5 Golden Ticket Series on iRacing. Chris Nunes and Nathan Nicholson. Guys, welcome to the show. Glad we can have you. And Chris, let's start with you. We're talking as well, right, so much today about the journey of going through Prodigy Week and becoming a professional race car driver. As someone that's gone through that journey yourself, tell us a little bit about what that process looks like for you as a driver.
Well, there's so much talent at Prodigy Week last year. I mean, every driver was fighting for that last 10th. The whole week was action-packed. There's a lot that goes into being a pro racing driver. And what really separates drivers from grassroots to pro racers is their ability to be the whole package. And that's what I'm going to be looking for with these drivers for Prodigy Week, is who's not only fast, but who is personable, who speaks well on cameras, who's able to show sponsors that they can give them a return on investment. So it's not all about being that quote-unquote fast driver as much as being the whole well-rounded package. And that's what I'll be looking for.
And I guess that goes as well to the scholarship, right, Nathan? And as you continue to make those steps up, you know, going from Spec MX-5 to the MX-5 Cup Series, what's that process like for you as learning along the way with all the resources that you get through those scholarship opportunities?
Yeah, Mazda really takes care of their drivers, and a lot of the value you get from those scholarships is before you're even chosen as a winner. The support they provide in helping you grow as a driver, and all the scholarships about is showing them what you've learned, and then after that, they continue to support you through MX5 Cup, continuing to help you learn in the professional paddock.
And, you know, Chris, you kind of alluded to it. You were there at Prodigy Week Part 1. It was great to see you kind of interacting with those drivers and giving them that feedback for a lot of them as they got into the car for the very first time. What was some of the takeaways, though, that you took, right? Because we had a bit of a mixed bag. Some drivers had experience in race cars. Others had never driven a car at all. When you look now at the sim, you talked a little bit about return on investment and stuff at Racecraft. What do you think we'll learn at Laguna Seca here today that you'll really be keeping your eye on?
Ooh, I mean, Laguna Seca is a very racy track. I'm from California, so it's one of my favorite tracks. Honestly, it's going to be who can make the smartest passes without taking themselves out of the race. And on the simulator, we're able to practice racecraft so much, and that's one of the most valuable things, in my opinion, about the simulator, is we're able to go on and we're able to race with some of the top dogs. I mean, Max Verstappen's always on the sim, so you're able to go run with literally the top drivers, and that is one of the biggest advantages. And Laguna Seca, like I said, is going to be the track that we want to be racing on. So it's going to be a very good race today.
And Nathan, you and I, we were talking just before we had this little chat, and you were saying that you've never actually raced at Laguna Seca, but you're going to be going out there in a couple of weeks' time and looking forward to racing. And the sim's going to be a valuable tool for you to learn the track, but mainly, I think, in many ways, because the cars, especially on iRacing, with both the Spec MX5 and the global MX5 Cup car, quite realistic to how the real car handles.
Yeah, I mean, last year it was a big part of my success. I was pretty much a new track every single weekend for me. So using the sim to prepare for that and, you know, being fast right off session one and able to work on the car and the setup was super important. And especially this year with less practice in MX5 Cup, it's crucial to be ready to go as soon as you hit the track.
We're really looking forward to, I think, seeing how you guys end up picking the drivers that will move forward to Last Chance Finals. But I think one thing that a lot of people will be wondering is what advice would you guys have to people wanting to get onto this Key to Rio pipeline? Now, Chris, I'll start with you, especially since you were there at Prodigy Week Part 1. You saw a lot of what the drivers have already been through in the journey. You've got an interesting background coming from 2 wheels over to 4 as well. Tell us what you think drivers should be looking at when they jump into the sim world if they want to make that transition.
If you're looking to get into the sim world, my advice to you is use that as a training tool and take advantage of that, because it is not the cheapest and affordable option to go out and test and have all those consumables with tires, fuel. If you're getting on even to have fun with your buddies, use that as a chance to be able to improve your driving. And a lot of the drivers don't do that. A lot of drivers get on, they go out, they wreck their friends and whatnot. They have fun, but they don't take that as the opportunity to continue to hone in on their skills. And make sure you do that every time you're on the sim. And if you're coming from a different form of motorsport, use it to get seat time, and it will help you go so much further.
And kind of building on that one, Nathan, what do you think is the most important characteristic for racing drivers to succeed? Because I guess that's one thing in the sim, right? With unlimited seat time, you get the time to really try and hone those crafts, those skills that you really need to develop.
Yeah, one of the big things I look at is the adaptability of a driver. And now with the rain and iRacing and different temperatures and whatnot, I'm really going to be looking at who gets up to speed quick and who can, you know, dance on their toes and learn as they go along with the sessions.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here today and supporting our journey here at Racing Prodigy. I don't envy you. You've got a hard task to pick just one of the drivers from each of the races to try and work their way on forward. But best of luck, and looking forward to seeing how things will fare out as we move forward here today in our Spec MX5 Golden Ticket Series. And thank you so much for both of our judges to come and have a chat with us. We've got about 1 minute again left in our fan vote for Group 2. So make sure, if you haven't already, you have your opportunity to have your voice heard. Joey Tebbin, who's your pick from that second race? If you're saving one driver, who's your pick?
Matt Caruana is my pick, I think. He would be the driver I go for because he was in the lead early on, made that mistake, ended up far back, did end up getting disqualified on that final lap for going over the incident limit, but that's the whole point of a second chance. If you've made mistakes, if you've had maybe a worse race than you're known for. A driver like Matt Caruana's been around for multiple of these Prodigy Racing League events in the past. I think he's going to be the easy judge's pick.
We've got about 20, 30 minutes before we are going to be ready for qualifying for the LCFs. Don't go anywhere here, though, on Racing Prodigy's YouTube channel. Let's go ahead and check out a bit of a recap of all of the action from 3 days of Prodigy Week, Part 1.
Well, welcome everybody. It's an exciting moment for us. Hopefully very exciting for you guys as well. Congratulations on a wonderful sim racing career for many, and now a real racing career hopefully lies ahead.
Spreading the word, just getting people to know what we're doing, to follow your stories, to follow what we're doing, and believe in it, get behind this, because it's transformational. You can get a lot of people in racing who deserve to be here because of their talent.
So we're going to put you through tests over the next 3 days, on and off track.
This is a competition. As much as you like each other, as much as you guys admire each other, as much as you guys want to be buddies and friends, you are each other's competition. So that level of adrenaline and excitement and anxiety will heighten, and we look forward to experiencing that with you.
Welcome to Racing Prodigy. This is the physical assessment side of things. You all are sim racers, which physically doesn't really require much of anything. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. And you have to learn that driving a race car is hard. The forces on the neck are tough. G-forces, the reaction times are a lot different now. You screw up now, you're in the wall. Not like being in a game where you reset things. We're going to measure your aerobic capacity. So the test that we're going to do today, we're going to run through a 12-minute run on the treadmill. You're going to run for 12 minutes as far as you can, one at a time. As soon as you finish, you sit down for 60 seconds. We'll measure your heart rate recovery. That's critical because in the race car, the heart rate's going to go high, but you want to have it set up so that you're fit enough that it drops as quickly as possible. That's one test. We'll do a reaction test. We'll measure your reaction times. We'll measure your grip strength test with a dead hang where you're hanging from a bar. Neck strength also, and then we'll do an upper body push-up test. Those are the 5 tests.
Reporter's always on. Like the moment they start talking to you and the second they end that interview, you'd have to be interviewed if you're in person. They're still on, they're still watching. You know, tell me how you got in sim racing. You got to figure out in that 30 to 45 seconds, how do I tell that really cool story about how I got into sim racing? The most important rule, if you ever leave here today, nothing is ever off the record.
On the sim, you know what, the sim can be pretty slick, but once again, you don't have that feel. So it's all about, you just see the rotation happening on the sim, but you don't feel it. It's another thing when basically you have another sensory part of your body having to sense something. That's what sends the fear factor through you, right? And they're like, you see it on the sim, it's one thing, but now you're seeing it and now your brain's like, holy crap, I don't only see it now, I actually feel it. Like, what's this going on? Why is everything getting super, slick? And then all of a sudden now your brain is having to do 2 things at once versus 1 thing. So that's what they're going to have to get used to right here. And this is a great place to teach it in a safe environment.
Fear makes you look at what you're afraid of. This is the way our genetics are built. In driving, that's the worst thing you can do. Skid Pad helps teach you not to look at what you're afraid of, but to keep looking where you want to go, which is actually pretty good advice for life.
This
is going to be your second on-track experience. You've already done the skid pad, and now you're actually about to jump into karts. So we're going to take you to the way, way back, right, where some of you may have possibly begun, maybe some of you have never karted before, maybe done rail karts, you name it, whatever. Today is about competition, right? We're about to jump into our first real competition of the day on track. So we're going to be jumping in these cars. We're going to be competing in multiple teams. We're going to have 4 teams going, so it should be a pretty good time. Right here behind me are your driver's suits. You got your helmets right above, and then right behind you, you have your amazing gloves. So let's get to it.
And our prodigies are out there. It's the final bit of day 1 activities, and we have split them up into 4 different teams with 4 different coaches as well. And now we will see how they all get on. The coaches are actually going to be out there as well with their drivers, so it'll be a great opportunity for them in this wheel-to-wheel environment to understand what they want to focus on in the next couple of days. This karting track is also Herman Tilke designed, and it does bear a lot of similarities in a lot of ways to the main track itself. Of course, the elevation change and the way the corners kind of rise and fall, but those rises and falls, those crests and valleys, that's what really requires the drivers to adapt around to the situation that they are dealing with. So as we're ready to go for the final kart event of day 1 of Prodigy Week, it is with Team Kenton Cook on the outside, Marco Page, Lorenz Herzing, and Nathan Saxon, the 3 prodigies in that team. We've got Randy Popes on the left-hand side and his team of Andrea Leonardi, Lauren Bertin, and Ciro Zambra. As we come toward the opening corner to get the green flag out for the final of day 1 of Prodigy Week.
What a run by Kenton Cook.
And that's now 2 places in 1 lap, but loses some momentum back up the hill to the line, and it's going to mean that Saxon has to get off the loud pedal for just a second. It is still quite close in terms of points, though, as the flag is going to fly. It's going to be Kenton Cook that wins in our final activities of day 1 of Prodigy Week. And with Nathan Saxon, Randy Popes, and Marco Pate, Ciro Zambra, Lorenz Herzing, and Andrea Leonardi behind, it should be a victory going the way of Team Kenton Cook, led, of course, by sterling display of speed in the closing stages.
Good morning. Everybody slept well? Recovered from the assessment? So we're going to go over your results today, and I want to talk a little bit about what all this means. I just want to kind of preface all this with being aware that racing is a dangerous sport. My first experience in racing that was really traumatic was Max was there in 1999. We lost Greg Moore, and I was the first time I ever experienced death at a racetrack. And my best friend Tony Rana lost his life in 2003 at IMS. It happens. Dangerous sport. This isn't like every sport where you can rest for a point or sit down on the bench or just relax. This is a life and death sport. Physical preparation is critical. Reduces your risk of injury, recover faster, it might save your life. So all these areas that we tested today aren't just because we want to see who's the fittest person out here. A lot of these things are habits that you should take on for the rest of your career. Drivers should be great at anything outside of the car. They should be really good at all sorts of activities. That's my advice to you. Everyone has some work to do here, so I think based on these reports, you kind of know where you need to target.
I am surprised at how well everybody did, because these are sim drivers, and sim drivers don't have any G-forces to deal with. You're pushing the brake pedal, steering. And so, I mean, I'm impressed with where you guys are. Racing Prodigy is starting today with a track walk. We're looking at Atlanta Motorsports Park, and we're just going to stand on each corner. We're going to drive there and talk about how to do the corner. And it's going to be a combination of the fundamentals of driving cars tied into this racetrack.
Why low speed corner are very important is because you stay in the corner for a long time. Usually, when I started, I focused on high speed. I wanted to be great. But you are in a corner for such a short amount of time that you cannot make enough of the difference. While if you're in the low speed corner, you might be 5 seconds into the corner, the duration. In a high speed corner, maybe a second. What you can gain or lose in a place like this is a lot more. So I would start focusing. If this is the slowest part of the track, that would be my number one focus to start.
Coach, talk to me and let the viewers on YouTube stream around the world know what we're preparing for and what's getting ready to happen.
Yeah, so the drivers are finally going to go out on the racetrack for the first time this week in the SR1s, and we're going to prepare them for how the rest of the event will go, right? So these cars record data, they record video, and when the driver comes in, we're able to pull that from the car, put it into a computer, and go over their session lap by lap, corner by corner. How hard did you brake? When did you go to throttle? Where'd you turn? Right, we can start to kind of pick apart a lap and give them the best way to do it and the most efficient way and the fastest way to go about it.
State of mind is everything. I've done like 18 and a half hours of a 24-hour race, right? And the NASCAR race is, 4 hours. But the first time you get in and do one, I remember the first time I did an oval race, I felt like E.T. in the river after. And it was just because I wasn't comfortable. And you're hanging on tight, you're just using all this energy. But when you feel relaxed, and let it flow, you're not using the energy. And you don't have to drive forever.
The promise that several of these drivers have, really all of them, because they're all standouts in the virtual world in what they do. The promise that all of them have is extensive. Some will, like every other driver you see come into motorsports, some will leap up to the performance levels very quickly. They just seem to have a natural ability. Others have to study it and work, but they get to the same level. It just takes them a little bit longer. So I expect big things out of all 12 participants.
So you guys now know this is how it looks, now your brain knows how it feels, right? Let it settle in. Think about it. It's like if you press record. Your brain recorded everything you did. You just need to give yourself some time for it to process. If you would just go up now, you would be 30% better just because you just did it. So you know what to expect.
Yeah. Let me just get a snack first.
Snack? I brought a snack.
Oh, that's okay. I'm good.
Oh no, I got this. Told you I brought a snack.
There's a better way to eat pickles on the go. Sucker Punch, the snack with a snap.
When you look at the number of participants who had a shot at this, who wanted to be one of 12 of 60-something thousand, I mean, that's impressive in and of itself. What a diverse group of drivers, what a diverse group of participants. Just really cool. They should all be very, very proud.
Players around 4 platforms. I mean, I'm lucky to be here.
We about to change the game. We out here taking names. Let our voices rise. Let them reach the sky. We about to change the game. We out here taking names. Let our voices rise. Let them reach the sky. Hickory dog, giving them Mr. Determined. Right in the storm and focus on rainbow connections like Kermit. The water on my shoulders, it was a burden. Now I don't notice it, everything turning. Everything shifting, doing it different. I'm floating, I'm drifting. Shout out the slums, round the world we uplifted. Doing it big. We about to change the game. We out here taking names. Let our voices rise. Let them reach the sky. We about to change the game. We out here.
Every one of them deserves to be there, celebrating the fact that they were here and a part of this very first ever Prodigy Week for Racing Prodigy, and what a 3 days it was.
And here we go, they're going to spray it, and let's see if they've learned how to spray the champagne. Two drivers have already punched their way to the Atlanta Motorsports Park, and now time for one more to join them. Ready to go in the last chance finals of the Prodigy Racing League Mazda Spec MX-5 Golden Ticket Series on iRacing, powered by SuckerPunch. Glad you can keep us company here on RaceSpot TV and on Racing Prodigy's YouTube channel. Arjuna Kankipati joined alongside by Joey Tebben. And Joey, let's be honest, an interesting couple of finals that we've just witnessed. The first one maybe a little less physical than the second one, but it set the stage very nicely for what lies ahead.
The first final, a dominant driver, seemingly untouchable, gets his day undone with a mistake and a blown gearbox. Second heat, a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more dominant, but that driver who made that mistake in the first final, Luis Bielica, will be back for a second chance. Matt Caruana from the second final, who was in competition for the win, also made a mistake. He'll be back for a second chance, and some fan favorites will be back. So if you're looking at the YouTube chat on the Racing Prodigy YouTube channel, that's going to be going wild. You've got whole countries represented. You've got families. It's going to be the craziest thing we've seen all night.
And yeah, let's announce the fan vote and the judge save from race 2, because you've all been waiting and trying to see if your particular driver has been selected. The fans have spoken, and Byron Mitchell, Mateus Alvalo will join us in this LCF. The judges have elected to save Carl Ridley and Matt Caruana. So interesting that I think they've looked at Matt and thought he performed quite well at the front. He's one to watch. And we talked about Carl Ridley being one of those drivers that fought their way forward from the back. Judges have a lot to consider and a lot of experience in these Mazda machines, Joey, from which to base it off of.
Yeah, and Ridley was 13 spots up from where he started, I think, when he was disqualified from the race. But if you remember back to Final 2, I think half the field was disqualified from that race. So that's not necessarily something that's going to make the judges say no and they can't advance. So those are the 8, but it's not just going to be that one 30-minute race again. It's going to be 2 15-minute races, and the grid's going to be flipped. So anything could happen. It could be a driver who finishes 4th and 4th, theoretically, that adds up to the most total points. Or it could be a driver who wins the first race, starts at the back, drives forward, and wins the second race. Who knows?
I think one thing that we are probably quite sure of, though, is now we're down to just 8. Passing is going to be plenty because they're not so worried about those behind trying to take advantage, right, Joey? And that's where I think that full invert is going to make it quite intriguing because the win pays out 8 points. 8th place pays out 1 point. So you can do the math to figure out everything in between. Add those two up together. Maximum points wins a Prodigy Pass. Seems quite simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, maximum points 16. A win and a last would give you 9. So, yeah, there's all sorts of complicated situations you could get into. You could finish 3rd and 5th, which would give you, no, 3rd and 4th. I don't know. We're going to be doing a lot of math. I'm going to have my calculator off to the side. I was just at the Yale Center for Teaching and Learning yesterday, so if I don't have my math in my mind, I'm going to be totally out of luck here. I'm going to be powered. I'm going to have pickle electrolytes. My math's going to be great. We're going to be great.
Yeah, let's give a shout out as well again to SuckerPunch, one of the partners joining us in 2024. Joey's got one of those pickle juice shooters. I've got the classic kosher dill pickle pack pickle chip. Say that one 5 times fast. Yes, thank you so much for their support. They'll be powering, of course, our athletes at Prodigy Week, and it's going to be quite fun. Because Prodigy Week is not just about the racing. It's about the mental, the physical, everything else that goes into being a racing driver, doing media, getting ready, analyzing data, all of those different things, Joey. And drivers have to make sure they present themselves at the whole package here, right? As we build towards that Prodigy draft, they really want to make sure they make a good impression for the teams that will be making their decisions.
If you're going to make a career in legitimate motorsports and racing, you can't really just be fast. You need to be good at all of those other things. Being a fast driver is great. It is kind of required. If you want to be a champion, you do need to be pretty fast. But if you want to get to that level in the first place, you need to know how to sell yourself. You need to know how to make people actually like you as a teammate and as a driver on your team. There's so much more that goes into it than just being a fast sim racing driver. This is just the first step here today.
And the first step for the drivers, I think, is also Prodigy Week. If they haven't been in a racing car before, that's going to be an experience. Putting the Hans device on for the very first time, getting strapped in, buckled in, and well, I think that's going to be quite fun. Don't forget as well, as we begin to build, we're really getting close, almost 30 days away from Prodigy Week Part 2. Make sure you follow us across all the channels, social media to stay connected, YouTube, of course, to watch all of the action when we get underway on May the 13th. And we're really not far away from it. Prodigy Week Part 2, May 13th through the 15th at Atlanta Motorsports Park. Joey, we've seen how fun that track is as well. We had one of our tournaments back in Season 1, Part 1 on R-Factor 2 there in the Radical SR3. Elevation change, the story when it comes to that track.
I remember down the hill, that high compression corner where we saw Brandon Hawken make so many moves in that tournament last season. That's almost like the corkscrew of Atlanta Motorsports Park. It's just a giant drop, lots of elevation change. This is actually a very, very good place to prepare yourself for the ups and downs of Atlanta Motorsports Park. So maybe all of the winners from this.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for the technical issues. The joys of live broadcasting, things sometimes do decide to go wrong on us. It's still our Junior Kanki party here alongside Joey Tebben as we get ready to finish up qualifying for the last chance finals. Joey, 2 Prodigy passes already paid out, 1 more left to go. How are you feeling about the tension that must be building in the air?
I'm even more ready now. Qualifying is underway, and you've got some of the absolute favorites out there. This is going to be what makes or breaks your day, I think. There might be 2 races. There might be 2 combined points affairs here, but you're still going to want to maximize qualifying in race 1. You don't necessarily want to do any gamesmanship and maybe finish last in race 1 so you can start on pole for race 2. You want to be up front. You want to do everything you can in your own power to set you up for success.
And I like that we keep mixing up these formats, right? Season 1, Part 1, that was all about win and you're in, basically, right? Let's be honest. You had the search selection committees to help you out as well. But we have full season tournaments now. We had 7 weeks building up to this, and now drivers get their opportunities to go once again. I like that they had the fans to come and save them, the judges to come and save them as well. Joey, we're building up a bit of an entertaining model here in the Prodigy Racing League, and while there's no Prodigy Zipper, at least we've got something else to make up for it.
And I wonder what could be next. What other kind of formats have we not tried yet? I don't think we've done an elimination race yet, where you eliminate last place every lap. I don't think we haven't done a figure 8 race yet. There's all sorts of possibilities.
Figure 8 races, don't you?
We could do so many things. There's so many more opportunities.
Well, I feel as though these drivers now know that this is probably their final chance to make a statement on track. Let's not forget, next Thursday, April 11th, 2 p.m. Eastern, here on Racing Prodigy's YouTube channel, we'll be hosting our Prodigy Cert Selection show for the iRacing drivers. 3 additional Prodigy passes on the line, and Max Pappas alongside Random Call Sign, racing legend, content creator, representing both the real and sim, to hand out those Prodigy passes. Going to be quite curious to see what they feel it's going to be, because there's so many different storylines that we could talk about. And I'm glad that Michael Romanidis and I'm glad Brandon Hawkin no longer in the conversation, Joey, because they have very much been making their cases known.
Yeah, if you keep around this series for long enough, if you keep trying, eventually you will be rewarded for your consistency and your constant success. So I am happy to see both of them finally get what they deserve. I am sad not to see them on track because they're always exciting, but that gives us the opportunity for more new drivers to hop into the pipeline and maybe help us out a little bit more, get some new names moving forward and some young drivers new to iRacing, new to sim racing, and see what they can do to make their names known.
Well, qualifying is basically already done and dusted, so let's go ahead and take a look at how the results have stacked on up. 6 thousandths between Matt Caruana and Raven Charter at the front. Lewis Bielica and then Byron Mitchell not far behind. Rowan Gill, Henrik Pettinari, and then Carl Ridley, Matthias Avalo. The 8 drivers that get ready to lock horns. And the great thing as well is if we turn our direction over on towards our beautiful look at the webcams, I'm pretty sure we should probably have most of them represented on screen. Ignore the other broadcast that's also happening at the same time live on RaceBot TV.
Who knows? Maybe that is somebody secretly getting in some help there. I don't know who that would be. Who's the most broadcastable driver in this field? We might have to send him an email.
The driver cameras, though, always tell us a lot, right, about how much intensity the drivers had. Brandon Hawkin at the end of that last final race, tongue was sticking out, was having to wheel his car to hold on. What we then saw in Final 2 was the incident limit, Joey, start to rear its head. This is only a 15-minute race. Same 17, though, point incident limit. Drivers have the ability to be, let's be honest, a bit more physical.
They can be a bit more physical, but you do have to be careful with that because contact in an iRacing event gets you 4 incident points. If you make 4 bits of contact, you're already at 16, and you run off track once, that's 17. So you do have to be very, very careful. You can get a little bit aggressive. You might be able to play with track limits a little bit more, but if you're making contact, if you're not driving as cleanly as you might otherwise, you will very quickly realize that you do still need to be careful, and you do still need to think about that incident point limit.
We've only got 8 cars to run you down onto the starting grid, so let's quickly go and do that as they get sat and ready to go racing. Caruana and Reuven Chacha on the front row, and then Lewis Bielica and Byron Mitchell behind. Rowan Gill, Henrik Pettinari 5th and 6th, and then behind at the back, Carl Ridley, Matthias Arvalo. Plenty of countries represented. Yet again, an international feel to our Prodigy Racing League events. 2 races, 15 minutes each. Plenty of pressure piled onto the drivers, and a trip to the Atlanta Motorsports Park on the line. No judges, no fans to save you anymore now, Joey. It's all down to your ability on track.
Yes, it is. Matt Caruana, kind of surprising to see him on pole. I very much expected Luis Bialecki to be the favorite here, but he's going on offense already, starting from third.
Going to be interesting down into the opening corner, given there's only 8. Are they going to feel that they can go more aggressive? Are they going to decide they want to be a bit more tentative? I think there's a couple of different ways to think about it. But everyone here was within about 8 tenths or so in qualifying. Expect them to be close when the race gets underway. 15 minutes onto the clock. 2 races in this last chance finals. One final chance for these drivers in the Prodigy Racing League Mazda Spec MX-5 Golden Ticket Series on iRacing, powered by SuckerPunch, to make an impact. A decent start from the very front of the field as they launch themselves down the hill on the run into the Andretti hairpin. Matt Caruana is going to cover the inside and make sure no one can make a move happen. Raven Charcher is going to try and fend off the chance of Luis Bialecki around the outside. Able to do so, Byron Mitchell takes advantage as the German's off and into the gravel trap. It's side by side for the lead though momentarily. 8 cars still fighting in the first of 2 races.
Oh, and Bialecki off the road again. Near contact as he rejoins the track. He's going all the way to last place. That might do him well for the second race, but that's not going to do him well here in race 1. That means 1 point. But that was just, that was a horrible start for Bialecki, flailing for the first 3 corners. I think he's finally back into the rhythm now. But wow, starting from pole, suddenly it all goes wrong for him for the first time.
You can see them start to now build that climb up towards the corkscrew. 15 minutes should mean, at most, maybe like 10 laps or so of racing. So it's not going to be many chances to make passes happen. Going to be curious how aggressive they're going to be. First time by, down the hill. No one's going to make a move. In fact, as it runs right now, Bialecki is going to have to really work hard to hustle to make sure he doesn't lose these drivers unless they start fighting. There goes Charcher looking up the inside.
That was a Petitjean move like in final number 1. That doesn't always work, but Charcher not quite alongside enough to actually make any contact or even make any actual move. But that does show you how aggressive he's going to be the second he gets a legitimate opportunity. He's going for it. Caruana does get to lead a lap for the first time in a little while, but Joshua's in draft range within 2 tenths. I think you're going to see an attempt at a dive into turn 1.
And I guess for some of these drivers, they've been waiting longer than the others to go racing. I wonder if the drivers in that second race had to also then have a rather harrowing wait to find out if they would be part of the fight. Down through the opening corner, not really going to be able to make the pass a long way around if you're Raven Charcher, at least early in this race. But see if on the top right corner of your screen, those point standings not working just yet, but maybe when we get to that second race, rather than try and make us do the commentators' math, Joey, we can offload some of that work.
Luckily, this is, I think, easier than some other points formats that have 2 race total point affairs, because it is just 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I think I'm going to take a screenshot of these race results at the end of it, and I should be able to do some math in my own head, but it is going to be difficult, and I do wonder if we're seeing some gamesmanship out of Luis Bialecki, because I don't think, at least I don't believe, that he's magically 5 seconds off the pace after about an hour out of the car. I think this might be a little bit of gamesmanship for him. I think he might be going for that maximum of 9 points and going for the win in race number 2. I don't know if that's necessarily smart, though, if that's what he's doing.
That's not a bad idea. But, you know, it goes back to what we saw at Thermal Club, right, with the NTT IndyCar Series and their non-points race there and some of the weird and wild strategies that
it's not going to win you the race. It might get you 3rd, but I don't know if it's going to win you overall, because if Matt Caruana starts last in race 2 after this win, he's not finishing last. He could finish 5th.
Exactly, and so I don't know if it's really smart, given that those at the front are showing they can stay close together and still fight pretty close. And Raven Charcher gets the door slammed shut on him by the Aztec Simsport entry of Matt Caruana as back up through the start-finish line and down into the opening corner. They will plunge. Now, does Charcher try and cover off Byron Mitchell and Rowan Gill? No, because he knows that Rowan Gill's going to try and take advantage of Mitchell trying to go the long way around. Plenty of decisions being made. Rowan Gill now the long way around out through turn 3, but he'll have to cut back into line. Doesn't get it done.
But these two are sort of the underdogs. Byron Mitchell and Rowan Gill were fighting for 3rd through about 5th in their respective finals. Maybe not necessarily in the fight for the win, but now they do have that opportunity. They are in the train, and Byron Mitchell especially has the most fan support in the chat right now, so he is going to be feeling a lot of power behind him, and this is as close as he's been to a win all day. He's definitely going to go for it if he gets the chance to.
Now those points are working. That will make our life just a little bit easier. We always say on RaceBot, never trust the commentator's math, and even with something as simple as this, I'm not trusting Joey, I'm not trusting myself, especially with something so important. We've been waiting to try and see a lunge up towards the front through the corkscrew. It's still waiting for someone to make the desperation send that only Alex Zanardi or Roman Grosjean would really think about doing, but next time by will be under 10 minutes left to go. Bielica, like you say, he's holding steady right there, though, so I don't know necessarily if this is intentional or if something actually happened at the start.
He had a really bad first couple of corners and then suddenly lost about 10 extra seconds, and I just don't know where that came from. But I'm already wondering what happens if there's a tie. If we have Caruana first and then 8th, and we have Bielica 8th and then 1st, do we have a way of breaking that tie? I mean, we may have just broken that tie right now because Chacha's taking the lead.
Oh, yes, good point. They're going to keep swapping back and forth up front. I don't think Matt Caruana's too fussed about not leading, at least momentarily. Chacha gets turned momentarily there on Rowan Gill and Byron Mitchell's cars. There may be some damage now to the right front of that number 2 and to the left side as well. Raven Chacha's been through all of the fight so far and now down to 5th.
And now Matt Caruana has that gap that we saw in both of those finals, that 7th or 8th, 10th gap that basically takes you out of draft range. Byron Mitchell needs to be absolutely perfect now. He's got a little bit of damage on that car, but that didn't stop him from being fast in final number 2. He's got to keep close. He's got to make sure that battle for the win is still alive. And all Chacha can do right now is fight for every point he can save.
And the tiebreaker, by the way, just looking through some of the notes that I had made, goes to the result from this first race. So maybe you do want to make sure you get the best result possible just because there is no other tiebreaker to then fall back on. It's quite crystal clear from there. So Chacha's got some work to do. Bielica's closed slightly as a result of all of that, but Caruana, Mitchell, Ridley, 1, 2, 3 down and out of the turn 9 and 10 complex rainy curve they go. And they'll hit the line with 4 laps complete. I do think we're going to get a full 10, and one thing I did note kind of when we jumped into this session is it does look like the cloud covers very much come over the track since we finished up finals 1 and 2.
And to translate that into California units, 82 degrees track temp Fahrenheit, so definitely not the hottest in the world, so it is definitely coming down a little bit, going to be kinder to the tires, and in a 15-minute race, I think you're especially not going to be thinking about the tires here. You're not going to see much fall off at all. You're going to be seeing 100% push, 100% tire shred, because you can afford to do that. These tires are okay in 15-minute periods.
Yep, nope. And again, they run Toyo tires in the Spec MX-5 series in the real world, and we're glad to have Toyo tires supporting us at Prodigy Week on our BMWs for both the autocross and the skid pad work. This is Rowan Gill still holding on to 4th position, bringing some real-world Spec MX-5 experience in. He's got to close that advantage. Now 2 seconds to those up front, and look how defensive he goes on the left-hander that sees them climb back up towards the hill. Chacha's going to have a look up the inside of Pettinari, and that will allow them potentially side-by-side into the next corner. Very scary to do so. Chacha says no thank you.
Yep, and Enrique Pettinari, whoa dear, there goes Rowan Gill, a huge slide up in turn 6, and unfortunately can't save it, points it into the tire barrier, and that could be one extra important point now for Luis Bielica up into P7. It could be some extra points here as they're throwing everything at it coming down the corkscrew.
And I'm hearing the sounds of engines slow, so I'm not sure exactly what's happening. That's a car on pit lane. What's happened to Byron Mitchell as well, who's come to a dead halt, and suddenly from the very back of the field, Matthias Arvalo finds himself fighting for not just the podium in this first final, but alongside Pettinari for what would be some very valuable points. Chacha and Mitchell going to be watching on for the next 6 minutes.
What in the world is my question now? I think Chacha may have blown the engine on downshifts coming into the corkscrew. It's very high speed into fairly low speeds. That is possible to do. And I wonder, with Byron Mitchell parking it on the outside there, did he have exactly the same thing happen to him? We'll spool up the replay machines when we can, because Arevalo and Pettinari, maybe they were thinking they were going to fight for last at the start of this last chance final, and now suddenly they're fighting for the podium.
Always like it when these drivers find themselves thrown into situations and have to adapt. That's something else that I think some of the judges for our search selection committees might necessarily be thinking about when they go back and reflect on what we've seen in our race room competitions and whatnot. That's Pettinari, that's Arvalo, as they continue to fight with Biloka now behind them, and any strategy that he thought about running at the back not going to work the way that he had intended. I think your leader, though, Caruana and Ridley, 2 seconds between them, passed off time distance in this race. Don't think we're going to see too much change up front.
I don't think we will, but with the amount we've seen so far, who knows what could happen. There's always the possibility of a blown gearbox now, or a mistake, or anything of the sort. Luis Biloka, though, blows by Pedinari coming into the corkscrew to take P4. I think it might be easy for him to take P3 as well with Matias Aravalo in front of him, but this is the start of all the drama, I believe, and this is going to be the first engine issue, I think, from Byron Mitchell.
Let's listen. Oh, and yeah, no, you can hear it there. And it's because they're trying to use the engine to downshift the car that I think is really kind of the issue, right? Engine braking where you can really be quite effective, and something that in a GT3 car, for example, you have downshift protection to help you with. Not the case here. Biloka the long way around for third position now as they work their way down the hill into the Andretti hairpin. Got to be careful both on the inside and the outside as to how much room you leave, and Biloka stays on the racing surface. He'll have the inside into the next corner.
Did throw a wheel off in the exit of turn 3, though, so I don't know. He could be playing with the incident points with the amount of trouble he had on lap 1, potentially some extra trouble to lose those 10 seconds, and now one extra little bit of off-track momentum. I don't know. He could be in the double digits by now. I think now he can afford to back off a little bit. He's in third. He's not going to make up 5 seconds in the next 2 laps. He can probably back up the pace just a little bit, run away from Aravalo and his natural pace, and just take this into race number 2, where he'll start 6th.
Let's take a look at what happened riding with Chacha. First through, contact between Pettinari and Rowan Gill. I think race control will take a look at that. Pettinari a little bit aggressive, maybe a bit optimistic, and then just listen in as well here.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a grenade.
Takes a second as well. It's not instantaneous, but you basically know as soon as you've committed the cardinal sin of downshifting too early that you're in trouble, and that hesitation, that moment's notice, just really lets it sink in. Race leader crosses the line, 2 laps to go. Matt Caruana now 3 odd seconds clear.
Fantastic race so far. This was kind of what we were expecting from him when he was given this chance. With how fast he was in final number 2, you expected to see either him or Luis just running away with this, and now with the mistakes from his competitors, with his own fast qualifying that put him in P1, he's just been able to take all of those ingredients and cook a pretty good stew here. 3 seconds ahead of Kyle Ridley, and he's not going to finish 8th in the next race. He might start at the back, but you're going to see him drive very far forward. It's going to be difficult to beat him in this 2-race total point affair.
And with, I think, Chacha down in 7th and seemingly not leaving pit lane, he's in a real bind. I don't know what he's going to be able to do to work his way forward in the points. Like, he'll start up the front, that's great. If he breaks away, fine, but you know, all Matt Caruana is going to have to do basically, if Chacha wins the race, is finish no lower than 6th, and he would still have a higher points total. We ride though with Rowan Gill, not with Rowan Gill, excuse me, Henrik Pettinari. Rowan Gill still is running though, so you know, he had a big smash into the outside wall. Great to see him persevering, trying to salvage something from this first race.
Just trying to make sure that he can take whatever there is from this race into number 2, because with the amount of trauma we've seen so far, there's going to be a lot of learning done in heat number 1. That's going to be taken into heat number 2, but there's also just going to be a lot of knowing how fast their competitors are, knowing that a driver like Luis Biloka is going to be difficult to keep behind. Do you get that much more aggressive? Do you just let him go because you know it's going to be a foregone conclusion? These drivers, Aravalo and Pettinari, they got in here based on the fan vote. They were quick enough in their finals, but it was a fan vote that got them in here. They're just kind of along for the ride, and I think they're hoping that in final number 2 they can get some similar luck and maybe add up to the total points that could beat somebody who finishes 1st and then 8th, for example.
I mean, Rowan Gill aside, who got, you know, escorted into the runoff area, the judges' picks right now, 1, 2, and 3 is the fan vote picks that currently sit behind them. So I think our judges clearly saw a decent amount from those first couple of races, and you couldn't have picked too many wrong, but they've definitely picked some pretty impressive drivers, and I'm glad, of course, that we had so much support in our fan vote for all of these drivers on their journey in the E2 Real, and I hope you'll all join us for Prodigy Week, because that's it's only the next part of the journey, isn't it, Joe? We've got the draft, we've got the actual Prodigy Racing League hopefully to come as well, or maybe in 2024.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to whatever could come next. I like my figure 8 idea, Arjuna. I think they should go with that to get somebody truly random and truly with a totally different skill set into Prodigy Week. But I don't know. I'm open to everything. They're always exciting, no matter what it is, and this new format as well. I think this might be the checkered flag, might be the white flag, but it's been very exciting so far.
It's going to be closer than I thought it was. Caruana has had the ability, if he wanted, to back things up on this final lap, such as being his dominance, and it will indeed be the checkered flag. Matt Caruana strikes first here in the last chance finals of the Prodigy Racing League Mazda Spec MX-5 Golden Ticket Series on iRacing, powered by SuckerPunch, and there's no reaction because, Joey, the job's not done.
No, it isn't. There's a whole nother 15-minute race, and he's got to start on the opposite end of the field for that one. He'll be starting dead last, but I think he'll be in pretty good shape. We're going to flip the field around, so Byron Mitchell and Royvan Chacha will be on the front row in race number 2. But are they going to be able to stay up there? Is Caruana going to stay at the back? Is Bylika going to stay at the back again? I think we might just see the field flip back into the order it is right now.
Let's take a look at those race results, just to remind you of what you need to keep in mind moving forward. This is how they finished. Flip it around, it's how they will line up. Matt Caruana, Carl Ridley, and then Lewis Bylika, 1, 2, 3. Matthias Arvalo, and then Henrik Pettinari, Rowan Gill, Raven Chacha, Byron Mitchell. 1 through 8. And I think we're going to be in for a bit of a blockbuster showcase. Do you think we should go talk to Matt Caruana after that victory? I think we should. Let's catch up with race winner in the first of the races in the LCF, Matt Caruana. Matt, talk us through that one and talk us through how you're feeling right now with just 15 minutes rather left to go here in the Prodigy Racing League finals.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good first race, but obviously it's not over yet. At the start, I was getting pressured hard, to be honest, so I was just trying to keep him behind. And then obviously they had that little incident, so it's just keeping it clean from them. But yeah, I need to see what I can do in this race, stay out of incidents, and as long as I'm up the front near the end, it should be alright. So yeah, that's what I'm going for.
What's the ability to pass here? We've only got 8 cars, so you're not too worried about, being caught by drivers behind or anything, but we've got some strong drivers here. How do you make passes and move your way to the front?
I mean, it's always close in this car, so it's all about staying in the draft, making a move through corners. Like the last corner, the first corner, they're always good. So yeah, it'll be a close race.
Well, Matt, we'll let you get off to it. Best of luck in the second race. 15 minutes left to go in the Prodigy Racing League.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Sounds calm. Doesn't sound like he's too stressed right now. And Joey, I admire that. He's much calmer than I'd be.
I mean, I wouldn't be too stressed either because he knows his competitors. He knows he's beaten a bunch of these guys in his actual heat. And he knows he's just beaten a bunch of them in this first part of the last chance final. So starting at the back might not be too painful for him. He drives up to 7th from the back. That's an extra point. Drives up to 6th, 5th, 4th. I don't think that's going to be a surmountable amount of points. So he's definitely the favorite right now. He can definitely be a little bit comfortable as long as he doesn't run into trouble in the second part of this final.
Surmountable. It's not often a word that's used, right? It's usually insurmountable, the way that people use the word.
That is true, but I think, I think he's insurmountable. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe insurmountable is the word for him. Insurmountable Matt Caruana.
All I think he's really going to be focused on staying clean at the start, staying out of any potential trouble, and then he'll know at the end, right? If he finished that first race out front, 8 points to his name. He'll see where the rest of his competitors are. First, Carl Ridley, of course. That will be the main one. Then he'll look behind, of course, to the likes of Pettinari, Bylika. But then, of course, the 2 drivers that find themselves in trouble, Joey, I think he's going to be recognizing that he doesn't have to finish in front of them to win here in this LCF.
I just want to get this going. Theoretical math was never for me. I like seeing the real thing. And I think we've got a little bit of a warm-up on track right now. I just want to get this race going because Matt Caruana's ready. I'm ready. Everybody at home is ready. Luis Bylika's ready. we all want to see some more racing. We want to see this resolved, and we want to see that last Prodigy Pass going out.
It's been a fun journey to get here as well. It's the final on-track action before we're at the Atlanta Motorsports Park 4, Prodigy Week Part 2. There's Rowan Gill as we continue looking at some of these drivers. Oh, there's Byron Mitchell. You know I love Lego. I love diecast. He's ticked both of those boxes off. I'm going to be cheering for him a little bit more now.
And look at the sheer amount of stuff behind him. He's got an old Sebastian Vettel Red Bull F1 car. And then we can say hello to one more driver, but yeah, there were like trucks, and I think there's a DTM car. There was everything you could have wanted there behind Byron. And
we're still wondering what happens behind Raven Chacha. We're all going to be wondering that for all eternity. Let's run down quickly trackside, take you through how they're going to line up with the second race ready to get underway. Byron Mitchell, Raven Chacha at the front, and then Rowan Gill and Henrik Pettinari behind them. Remember, standing start as well. Matthias Arvello and then Lewis Bielica. Row 3, Carl Ridley, Matt Caruana line up at the very back. I've just gotten word, though, that Lewis Bielica might have a penalty from that first race, which is going to drop him back a couple of positions. Keep that in mind. We'll talk about how that impacts the points, but we're ready to go racing. Drivers rev their engines for the final time in the Prodigy Racing League Mazda Spec MX-5 Golden Ticket Series on iRacing and powered by SuckerPunch. We power our way up the hill and then down in towards turns number 1 and 2. Already neck and neck for second. Byron Mitchell gets a good jump. Chacha has to defend. Rowan Gill's already up the inside, throwing the car on forward and down through the Andretti hairpin. Leaves a big room up the inside. Chacha down to 4th now as they battle off the corner.
And look at that gray number 5 in the back. That's Matt Caruana. He's going to be the driver to look forward to. He's already up 1 spot. He's already got himself an extra point, and we haven't even made it through a quarter of the lap so far. Look at Bielica and Arevalo and Pettinari side by side as well. Rowan Gill's off the road. This is even more frenetic than race 1.
And I wonder if this is all because and so as Rowan Gill drops down the order, it just continues to work their way on through. Oh, wait, it's not good. Uh-oh. Damn it. I have to set up another restream. Give me a sec. Oh no. Oh no, this is not good. I'm just going straight to Racing Prodigy YouTube. We'll be up in a sec.
Okay.
Here they go, fighting their way down in towards. They're on in towards the rainy curve. They're fighting for the lead. It's still Raven Chacha that's at the front, but Byron Mitchell, Lewis Bielica still hanging close. Matt Caruana's been patient, Joey. He sits in that 4th position.
And Matt Caruana right behind. With my points calculations in my mind, that means that Matt Caruana gets 4 points from this race, 8 points from race 1. That's 12. Right now, he is in the best position, theoretically. Because now, as I say that, Luis Bielica finished 3rd in race 1, 3rd right now. That would be 12 points for him as well. Unfortunately, he does have a 5-second penalty, which dropped him 2 positions in race 1, so he doesn't have 12 anymore. He's actually down to 10. Put Matt Caruana back in the lead in the overall points.
It's crazy, isn't it? The way that this race just continues changing and the fight to make their way onto the trip to Prodigy Week Part 2. And we saw the emotion, didn't we, from Matt Caruana, or the lack of emotion, I should say. Contrast that to the emotion from Brandon Hawkin. That's what we're going to see when we get to the end of this race. The Racing Prodigy YouTube channel, and glad that you are here for the last 11 minutes of our trip to Prodigy Week. It's still Arjuna Kankipati alongside of Joey Tebb, and the internet wanting to not play our friend today, Raven Chacha, Byron Mitchell 1 and 2, Matt Caruana sitting in 3rd. Think we don't have to do too much math here, Joey, to know how things are playing out.
No, we do not. Matt Caruana doing an absolutely perfect job. He's up 5 spots from where he started. And honestly, I don't think we can write him out for this win. Royven Chacha was very fast in final number 1. Byron Mitchell was very fast in final number 2. But neither of these guys have quite had the nuclear-powered pace of Matt Caruana in the last half hour or so. So if they start fighting for P1, if they even slow each other down that littlest bit, you're going to see Caruana make that a 3-way battle. And you might see him say, I don't care about your reverse grid format. I'm going 2 for 2 no matter what.
A bit of a statement made as well, right, if you're able to do something like that. And it will give you confidence. We're only, 36 days away from making our way over to Atlanta. It's going to be a bit of a journey for some of these drivers, Joey, right? They'll make the trip across the world in some cases. For some of them, maybe make the first trip to the U.S. Some of them maybe haven't left their home countries before too much. There's a lot to experience, and that's part of what the judges come Prodigy Week are going to be looking at.
Yeah, how do you deal with circumstances that you've never dealt with before in your life? Because that's what racing is all about. Racing is not just driving a car around a track on your own. You're going to deal with circumstances that you've never seen before. Things change every lap. Things change every week. And if you can just prepare yourself for a situation like that, or improving your fitness before you go to Prodigy Week, or getting some kind of studying in, that's going to go a long way to show that you're serious about it, and you are ready to transfer through that E2 real pipeline and move from just being a sim driver to potentially making a career in motorsports.
And for some of those other drivers, let's just reiterate, there will be more chances to come in the E2 real pipeline. It's not going to just close as soon as we get to Prodigy Week Part 2. And we have what will end up being 30 drivers who have competed in a Prodigy Week, eligible potentially for the first Prodigy draft. But after that, more Prodigy Racing League esports tournaments to come, and more opportunities for you as well. So that's where, make sure you're sticking around on all of the social medias to be part of the conversation. Bielica, though, got a bit of a penalty after actions in the first race. Let's see if he can give us some entertainment to close off the final 8 and a bit minutes, though.
Might as well. You got nothing to lose. You might as well give us some entertainment, because I think we know we're going to see Luis again. He was with us in some other sims. He's joined us again on iRacing. We'll see him go for some glory again. We know he's absolutely fast and capable enough of winning one of these events, but hasn't gone his way so far. He's on the back foot. All he can do is maximize his position, minimize his losses, and give himself confidence for the next event he gets to participate in. That's going to give him some confidence, trying to go for it around the outside in turn 1. Makes contact with Ridley, though, and actually ends up losing a spot. A little bit too aggressive there.
This is what Spec MX5 Racing is all about, getting the elbows out, knowing when to fight and when to slot back into line. And again, big shout out to the team at Spec MX5 for their liveries and the carryover that we've had of them. The 48 drivers that we had today competing in across our 2 finals races. Half the field in real Spec MX5 liveries, half in special edition Racing Prodigy Spec MX5 sponsored entries. Raven Chacha at the front of the field is probably going to be thinking what could have been. And the Prodigy Cert Selection Committee, Joe, it's an interesting process, isn't it? Because you get 60 seconds to make your case in a video, interview kind of format. 60 seconds to try and tell the judges why you, over thousands of others, should get this opportunity.
And the way you can kind of elevate yourself over the rest of the pack is by making yourself known in these events, I think. If the judges see that Royven Chacha sent in a video, or Byron Mitchell sent in a video, or Luis Bielica sent in a video, they're going to go to the top of the queue over the 900 other people who maybe didn't even race in any of these events and are just going for an outside chance. So it's good to qualify for these actual races. It's the most important thing you can do. And I think Royven might be in with a pretty good shot. All of these guys might be in with a good shot as well. Luis Bielica is going to try and do what he did in turn 1 last time and hopefully make it actually happen with less contact. Switch back to the inside. That was dicey, but he is going to make it happen.
And watch from behind, where does Arvello place his car, because Ridley almost bobbled out onto the gravel and onto the curb, but he was able to snatch it back into line. Great fighting. I love these Mazda MX-5s, and highly encourage, if you're ever watching an IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship weekend, you're there in person, and they do have the MX-5s out there as well. That's usually the best racing of the entire weekend, and this is kind of why. 14 machine slings it to the inside. Ridley wants to avoid losing yet another spot, as he will be on the outside now, up into the very treacherous left hand. This is not a place I like being side by side. We've seen contact before in these LCFs, and this time it's backing out, and Ridley holds on.
All clean and all good. This is actually the calmest period I think we've had all day, Arjuna. We've had chaos and calamity and drama all day long, and now suddenly we've got 5 minutes to go. Most everybody is separated and stratified sort of where they should be, and I think we can just breathe for a little bit, at least for the moment. It's possible that something kicks off on the final lap, as we've seen in every single one of these races so far. There's always some drama left, but for now, these drivers do get to breathe for the first time today and maybe start the process of calming down after all that's gone on.
1.5 seconds still at the front, though. Raven Chacha just continuing to hit his marks, not putting a foot wrong just yet. There's Byron Mitchell. Looks pretty focused, stands up in his seat as he slams onto the brakes. You can see these cars move around a decent amount as they work through the corner as well. It is the type of car, though, where it's very different driving it by yourself, Joey, versus driving it wheel to wheel and in a pack, isn't it?
Yeah, it becomes much faster when you're in a pack, because you actually have the effect of a draft, and you just having more fun when you're racing with other cars. That's as simple as it can be. It's a low-power car. It is fun to throw it around a racetrack, but it's that much more fun when you're actually doing wheel-to-wheel battle. And I think Byron Mitchell definitely agrees with me. I think the people of the chat rooting him on agree with me as well. And just because I have respect for all the Byron Mitchell fans in the chat, I'm not going to do my South African accent today.
You have a South African accent? You haven't attempted a South African accent, is what you mean to say.
Yes, that's the right way.
Yes. Off into
South Africa.
Off into the gravel goes Kyle Ridley. Not going to lose the spot, though, as Henrik Pettinari and Rowan Gill close up the back of these drivers as well. These are the types of things, though, that I hope that we'll get to do more of in the future of the esports part of the Prodigy Racing League, Joey, because there's hardcore sim racing, which we can have our fun with, but then there's the sort of the unique formats that we can do. I would even suggest, I'm just putting it out there. Can you imagine if we told these drivers 2-part final, race at Laguna Seca first, go side by side through the final corner, then go up the road to Sonoma? I'm just saying it could be wild. Arvalo says, let me get forward to 5th, though.
Sonoma Rallycross in the MX-5s. Make it happen.
There you go. How about that?
Can you actually do that now? Have the Sonoma jumps been updated to the fact that that wheels not on Rallycross cars exist, or do you pass through the jumps still?
Oh, I actually don't know that. It is a very, very good question, as Carl Ridley has just had a brief internet issue, and, well, you can see that's done with Henrik Pettinari and Rowan Gill, because it made them close up very, very abruptly. Pettinari's covering the inside, and Rowan Gill tries to find a way on through.
Yeah, that was weirdly slow. That almost looked like Rowan Gill had a slowdown, or Pettinari had a slowdown rather, and was blocking, trying to make sure he didn't lose it. And Rowan Gill says, "I'm opening the door. I'm forcing the door open, rather." And there goes Rowan again, making contact with Pettinari. And Kyle Ridley's probably pretty scared right now on the scene. He's saying, "I want to run away from this. I want no involvement in what you guys are doing."
He sweeps around the outside, grabs 2 for 1. Great pass there. Just takes his momentum. And we were talking earlier about you have to both attack and defend. Sometimes you defend too hard, you lose too much speed, and Rowan Gill could do nothing but watch as down through the corkscrew. We'll get ready to, I think, see the white flag this time by Raven Chacha, Byron Mitchell, Matt Caruana. Still 1, 2, and 3. But I think it's pretty obvious, at least as it stands right now, with the white flag in hand, Matt Caruana 1 lap away from a trip to the Atlanta Motorsports Park.
Indeed, 8 points in race 1, 6 points in race number 2. That's 14 points. Nobody else even comes close to that total. So it's pretty easy to say that Matt Caruana will win this thing, but that's assuming he actually finishes in his position. As we've seen so many times tonight, you cannot get complacent. The race is not done until you cross the line in the final lap. No money shifts, no off tracks, no contact with the wall. Then you get your Prodigy Pass, but there's still quite a few miles until that comes.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got the rise up and down, and the trip through the corkscrew still to go. Rowan Gill gets turned on the nose of Pettinari, goes out wide, and going to drop to the back of the field. It's been an intense fight for these drivers. I think that kind of sums it up quite well. Laguna Seca, we always kind of knew it would be one of those tracks where you could make passes, Joey, but it was going to be difficult to get it done, and we've kind of seen that so far today. I feel as though passes have been possible, not been easy though.
They've very much been possible. There's been some contact required, there's been some aggression required, but it has been so exciting today in both finals, in both of these last chance finals as well. We've seen some of the best racing we've ever seen in a Prodigy Racing League event. And at the end of it all, there was some bad luck, there was some misfortune. Some drivers who maybe could have won the whole thing are definitely going to be ruining just some small mistakes that totally ruined it for him. But one driver was pretty much mistake-free in this last chance final, and he's going to take the whole thing.
And of course, we have had live race control. Let's just remember that. They have had to keep an eye on some of the argy-bargy that we've seen. Raven Chacha will come to the line, and after the disappointment of that first race in the LCF, he'll at least deliver with a victory in the second part. But Matt Caruana's going to the Atlanta Motorsports Park, the winner of the final Prodigy Pass on track in the Prodigy Racing League Mazda Spec MX-5 Golden Ticket Series on iRacing. A puff of the cheeks. I don't think it's quite set in. What exactly has just happened?
Well, I appreciated him putting his hands back on the wheel, because he put both hands up behind his head coming across the line and then quickly realized, oh wait, I'm going off track. I don't know if I can afford an off track here. And did get it back pointed straight, but very deserving driver. Seen him across multiple sims, across multiple Prodigy Racing League tournaments last season, and now he's finally got his last chance. And there's the hype. He knows it. He's ready.
Still waiting for a little bit more potentially, but ultimately, this is what it is all about. He's got a nervous smile on his face right now, and we can confirm Matt Caruana winning the LCF. 15 points officially the winner of the final Prodigy Pass. Oh, don't wreck your Mazda. Come on.
A little bonk. It's okay.
We'll grab a look at the results. We'll grab a chat with Matt as well, and we'll wrap things up here and look forward to what's to come. 2.1 seconds between Raven Chacha and then Byron Mitchell. Matt Caruana in third position did exactly what he needed to. Stayed out of trouble and grabbed the points. Bailica, Arvalo, Ridley, Pettinari, and Gill. The rest of our 8 drivers in this LCF, both from the fan save as well, of course, from the judge save, but only one wins the Prodigy Pass. Let's bring Matt Caruana back in for a chat. Matt, you've just won a Prodigy Pass. You're going to the Atlanta Motorsports Park. You're going to drive a Radical SR1. How does it feel?
Mate, that was the longest race of my life. I mean, I don't have any words, to be honest. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I've done like 3 or 4 of these tournaments now, and I've just never had any luck in them. So it's amazing to finally, like get my chance. But yeah, it's amazing.
Let's talk a little bit about what happened at the end of last year. British Formula 4 Esports Championship. I know it was an up and down roller coaster for you. Let's talk about the up, because you were one of the few drivers to take the hunt and the fight to some of the strongest in that championship. What confidence does that give you going into Prodigy Week Part 2, where you're going to be racing and showing your skills, all in the hopes of competing for a professional racing contract? We've seen you can do it in the virtual world. Can you do it in the real world?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved doing that British F4, like you said, for example, a great championship like that. And yeah, it's just great to finally have something, come out of it, like an opportunity like this, where I can showcase, what I've been working on the sim. And yeah, I'm just grateful. I'm so grateful.
Matt, congratulations. Go off and celebrate. Enjoy this one, and we'll see you at the Atlanta Motorsports Park in 36 days' time.
Thank you, boys. Appreciate it.
Matt Caruana winning in the LCF. Ended up not being that close, Joey. 15 points for him, 10 for both Carl Ridley and Matthias Arvalo, which ends up being 5 positions when you think about it like that.
Yeah, nobody was going to beat him with how dominant he was in race 1. Even if he was starting from the back, you were going to see him move his way forward and score a ton of points. And yeah, I love this last chance final format. I honestly hope we see it again. I think this was a lot of fun. It added a lot of pressure, and it added one more driver to Prodigy Week, who's going to be joining a whole host of others. You got the 2 Polish drivers. You got the drivers from Street Kart Racing. You got the drivers from Race Room. You got the drivers from today. We've almost got a whole set. Only a couple more left.
And they will come courtesy of our Prodigy Cert Selection Committee show. So do make sure that you are subscribed to us here on the Racing Prodigy YouTube channel for all of that to come. It's not far away. The days are ticking by. May 13th through the 15th, Prodigy Week Part 2. The drivers get tested mentally, physically, what it is all about being a racing driver. We want to dive into their psyche, and then, of course, all that will come after that. There's the links to follow us on social media. Joey, your closing thoughts, though. It's been a wild Season 1 Part 2, and now the stage is basically set. All we've got to do is lock those final drivers in and get to Atlanta. What are you going to be looking at relative to the first Prodigy Week when we get ready to do this once again?
Well, everybody has that 1 year already to learn from. They saw what went on. They saw mistakes that drivers made. They saw what drivers succeeded at, and they can make it that much better themselves with 1 year of information to study on. And those 3 drivers who get those final slots from the Prodigy Search Selection Committee, they might have less time to prepare, but I think they'll still all be hard-pressed to not prepare, assuming they're going to get it. Get a little bit of confidence, prepare, thinking you're going to get it, and then you'll be that much more ready once you do it. And I'm disappointed I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm going to be busy in that second weekend of May, so I can't come to Prodigy Week, but I'll be watching. I'll be keeping track.
It's okay. You'll be at the racing capital of the world, so I don't think you'll have too much to really complain about from Speedway Indiana through the month of May. But for now, it is time for us to bid you farewell. Again, this Prodigy Search Selection Committee shows kick off on April 11th here on Racing Prodigy's YouTube channel, 2 p.m. Eastern. Join myself, Max Pappas, and Random Call Sign for that. 3 more Prodigy's passes to hand out. For our entire team behind the scenes, though, Race Control, our team at RaceBot bringing these broadcasts to you, and of course our partners and the team at Racing Prodigy. We thank you for being with us along for the journey, and we can't wait to join everybody bright and early from the Atlanta Motorsports Park on Monday morning, May 13th, for all the action in Prodigy Week Part 2. See you there.